Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. I hope you're all very well. I hope you're having a fantastic start to the week, and I hope your weekend was, shall we say, uneventful. I think that's a nice way of saying like nothing too bad happened. I hope you had a nice weekend, but I hope it was uneventful. So let's have a look and see who we've got in the chat this evening, because we've got lots of lovely folks already chatting away there. So Gundam RX78 was in earlier on. Nice to see you in, Gundam. We've got Super Pumpkin Man as well. Good afternoon to you. Clyde's in as well. Says bonjour. That's a Super Pumpkin there. Hello, Clyde. How you doing? We got Mark SG. Good morning, Mark. We got Wayne Hayward in. Good evening to you. Jez Hunt. How are you doing, Jez? Hope you're well, mate. We got Type 40 Torres. Good evening. We've got Camo in. Good morning to you as well. Christian Reeves. Hello, mate. Nice to see you in the chat. Thank you very much for moderating our chat again this evening. We got Alex Berry. Nice to see you, mate. He says, what's it all about tonight then? So, if I can remember the title, because I haven't got it written anywhere in front of me, it was the title of tonight's chat, and the kind of like the main topic we'll be getting on with later is maybe I was wrong about the wargaming hobby. Now, I appreciate that is very cryptic. Excuse me while I just move this cutting mat because it's digging into my arms a little bit. I appreciate that's very cryptic, but that's the whole point. It's not meant to give it away, otherwise you'd have nothing to listen to, would you? So yes, we'll be chatting about that tonight. Andrew Cook says good morning from the future. Good morning, Andrew. How you doing? Yoakum, hello to you as well, matey. We've got RG said he's just finishing off his dazzling contribution to next week's event. Yes, do not forget that next week is the 27th of February, so that will be the show where we show off the February patent submissions. February already? It's nearly blooming March. How's that happened? I can't believe this year's flying past so fast. Good evening, Anna. How are you doing there with Red Rose Wargaming? Camo says, where was that one? Let me just scroll down if I can find it. He says, is the background the Marvel game? I'm assuming you mean the background on the thumbnail, mate. The Hulk was one of those pictures. It's the new version of the Hulk from Marvel Crisis Protocol, yeah. Karchner says, clickbait enabled. Well, it's only clickbait if you don't deliver on it, isn't it? Lizzie Mini Painting, how do you as well, mate? How's things? Clyde says, uneventful is always nice. That's the way to do it, isn't it? Underdog Painting, hello Bazza, how are you, mate? He says, been a long time since he's been in the chat. Hope you're well. I'm not too bad, mate. I'm not too bad. We've got Colin Wakeland, good evening to you as well. We got K Leo, howdy friends, says, nice to see you in as well. Tasty Brain Dream, good evening. Colin Mack, good evening. We've got Skulldoggery in as well. We've got Because of Ben's in as well. We've got Jazz Cat, good evening to you. AMC says, evening, a weekend of airsoft and lots of Malifaux painting. That sounds like a very nice weekend, mate. I haven't played any airsoft in a long time, way before lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. But I do still have my airsoft stuff. I've still got my guns and things. Alex says he got smashed at a Tony this weekend, but was great fun. I did see the results, mate. Did you feel like it could have went a different way, or do you think you were beaten fairly and squarely? Tony Howell, good evening, mate. How are you? Super Pumpkin Man says a future project idea is making Tyranid wings either out of plexiglass or clear resin. Not sure which to try first. Wow, Sounds like a very adventurous kind of a project, mate. Best of luck with that one. Big Dave, good evening to you, mate. We've got Ed in as well. Hello, Major Tom. Bazza says, Mantic have been sending me a few box sets to make some videos. Looking forward to building and painting as I've never built anything but GW. Interesting, mate. Did you kind of reach out to them, mate, or did they get in touch or something like that? Always good to hear how people kind of pick up some Mantic stuff. Dice Hand Entertainment says, good and Auburn, Mr. Good Vibes. Mr. Good Vibes, I've never been called. I've been called many things, never that. Good and Auburn to you as well. Deep Red says, hail and well met. Nice to see you. Lucy says, good evening as well. I hope you're well. I'm not too bad, Lucy. How are you? Are you having a good evening? Tony says, what was I thinking? Scratch building something for the challenge on a short month. They all feel like short months, mate. They all feel like short months. Super Pumpkin Man says, just need to finish a few little things for the February painting submission. Don't forget, folks, you have until next week. So until next Sunday. The title or the subject or the challenge theme this month was love. Because, of course, it's been February the 14th. It's been Valentine's Day this month. And so it's about, like, maybe there's a miniature that you love. Maybe there's a game that you love. If you can link it. Maybe you just want to paint little hearts on a cloak or something like that. Whatever you want. But love was the theme this month. Zingbo says, good evening all. Got a couple of models I need to airbrush some varnish onto this evening. So I'm not going to hear all of the live stream, sadly. No worries, mate. It'll still be here when you're finished. Ed says he's got time for some terrain tonight. Nice one. Kilo says, hey, it worked. I wasn't sure I could fix my name. I've never had to change my name on YouTube. I don't even know how you would go about doing it. So congrats on that one. Andy Smith, good evening to you, mate. He says, read pet, how's it hanging? Not bad, not bad. Matthew Wilkinson is in as well as saying hello all, having a bad painting day today. Oh dear, mate, what's going on? Kilo says, had a long weekend, did not paint or craft a single thing. Do you know what, mate? I didn't either. I've been working this weekend. So what have I done over this weekend? I spent pretty much all day Saturday editing videos. And then did we watch? I'm trying to think if we watched a movie on Saturday night or did we do something? I think we watched like some music stuff on TV, like just like music documentary in the background while we just sat and I had a can of Guinness and my wife had a glass of wine and we sat and chatted. And then on Sunday, what did I do? We went for a walk. Me and my wife and my little boy went for a little walk. Had a cup of coffee. I did some more editing because I had more editing to do. And then I went to watch the Ant-Man and the Wasp new Quantumanium film yesterday as well. So yeah, I didn't do any hobby this weekend either. Buzzer saying, yeah, reached out to them, jumped at the chance to work with the most professional YouTuber. Nice one, mate. I'm glad. James, good evening, mate. How are you doing? He said he just had a game of Pandemic Legacy Season 2 with a good lady wife. We got battered 2 plague cubes during the game setup. Oh, I tell you what, mate, that's always a tough start. You almost want to re-rack when you do that one. Good morning, VJ. How are you doing, mate? Florian says, no sound. I'm assuming it's yours, mate. I'm assuming you've got the sound turned off, if that's the case. I'm sure the sound looks like it's working from my side. Nobody else seems to be complaining about it. Lucy says, I'm well, thank you. Long day at work, now relaxing for the evening. Well, I'm glad you've got the chance to put your feet up and kick back for a bit. Where are we up to here? Yeah, Florian said it was on my side. Gimmers says, what are you playing at the moment? So at the moment, mate, I'm not really playing anything. I've been a bit sort of sidetracked with other bits and pieces. But I did have a demo game of Conquest, the Last Argument of Kings, about a week ago, just over a week ago. So I'm kind of choosing I'm choosing a faction for that at the moment. But I'll be honest, I've not really had the opportunity. I've been playing board games with my wife, if I'm honest. We've done a couple of exit games over the last couple of weeks, which we have enjoyed. The one we did the other night was it something like Fortune City, like Theft in Fortune City or something like that, which was like a kind of like a Western themed one, which was pretty good. We enjoyed that. Tony says, hey, the VJ. Jet says he's busy on the multi-basin for these Kings of War goblins. They love stabbing stuff, so that's the tenuous February challenge link. That works for me, mate. I'm all right with that. And Keto saying you can change your name in the settings. I just blundered it out till I found it. Well, there you go, mate. I didn't know that. Alex says I got beat fair and square. The dice gods deserted myself, and then my opponent in the game for third place was awesome. No, Daryl did a great job organising. Yeah, I would have loved to have attended, mate, if I'm honest, but I just couldn't make the afternoon part of the day. I did pop along in the morning. I came to try and just kind of show my face and say hello, but it's got one of the magnetic lock things on the door, hasn't it? And I couldn't find a buzzer or anything like that to ring through and let people know I was there. And I thought, oh, people are playing their games, I won't kind of bother them. So I was there in spirit, mate. I did pop along. Matthew says the airbrush problems created a mess on my Jabberwocky. Tell you what, airbrush problems, yeah. And Alex says he's getting some new dice. Yeah, definitely don't borrow Daryl's, mate. That's a good start. Super Pumpkin Man says my main problem is photographing my submission. The colours keep looking a little off. To be honest, sometimes if you're just using a phone, sometimes if you just like tap to focus on the thing you're taking the photo of, it should kind of auto colour balance it for the thing that you're taking the picture of. So if you try and like focus it first before you take a picture, sometimes if you got, or put it on a black background or something like that, which will automatically make the camera try and brighten the image a little bit. Stuff like that you can kind of do. Yeah, everyone's saying the sound's fine. VJ saying he's got his flights to Europe booked. Nice one, mate. See you soon then. Clyde says, are you making progress on the monthly challenge? I've not painted anything this month, mate. What have I got on my desk at the minute? I've got Star-Lord still half finished from when I started painting him a few weeks ago. I've got tier minis that I decided I wanted to paint, but I've undercoated them and brought them inside, and then not got any further with them at the moment. But yeah, I might get something. Will I get something done in the next week? It'll be pushing it, but we'll see, eh? Florian says dry brushed half of the ITD narrative terrain into the dark. I assume that is just minutes ago, so at least I've done some hobby stuff this month. Yeah, it's nice just to kind of to do some bits. Camo says interested to hear about Conquest video coming ? There will be a video coming this week, mate. I did an interview actually last week with Leo from Parabellum War Games or Parabellum Games. And we had a good old natter. We were on the Zoom call for quite some time. I've obviously cut that down a little bit for the video, but I think it's still probably about an hour's chat. So it's one of those to pop on in the background. I'll be honest, I would really appreciate it if folks, even if it's not really your cup of tea, I'd appreciate it if you at least give it a try, because I've put a lot of effort into like editing a lot of images into this conversation, so that when we're talking about things, there's images in there to show what we're talking about, and it's took me bloody days. So I hope it's not one of them videos that gets about like 100 views, and I'm like, oh, it took me like 3 days to edit this or something. It would be nice. Good evening, Peter Kuhlman. How are you doing? Gimmons says, do you think Mantic will do a similar format to Warcry? Will Mantic do a similar format to Warcry? For what, mate? A format for what? Because I'm not really sure what. Are you thinking about this new thing that they're teasing? The new thing that they're teasing is just the Dungeon Saga sort of. I forget what it was called. It's like basically an entry level dungeon crawling type game that they talked about last year, which is it's kind of like it takes the wind out of the sails when they start teasing things that they've already revealed 3 months ago. Yeah, the younger version of Dungeon Saga. Camo saying, great, your interviews are the best. Well, in that case, mate, you will love this week, because I've got 2 interviews this week as well, because I've got another interview as well, which I've been editing as well, which is an interview with Colin from Battle Systems about Maladum, their new fantasy sort of, let's say, fantasy version of Core Space for the shorthand version of it. So yeah, so there's 2 interviews coming this week. So yeah, so for all it might have been a little bit quiet, I've been doing a lot of kind of recording and editing in the background. There's also, what else have I got coming up as well? There's a gameplay of Maladum that's coming up soon as well, but I'm going to release that a little bit closer to the Kickstarter launching, which I think is in March. So yeah, so it's plenty happening. Yeah, Jez is just saying there, everyone was talking about a dungeon crawler you can play with the kids, so I reckon that's it. Yeah, that's exactly what it is going to be, isn't it? And Clyde says 2 interviews. Okay, you're forgiven if you don't partake in the monthly challenge. J's must be swamped with editing. That's where what my time's going at the minute. Is like the gameplay video for Maladum has taken a lot of time as well. There's a heck of a lot of editing in that. There were some technical issues as well in the video footage, so I've been fighting with that as well, trying to kind of clip those bits out without losing the kind of the trail of the gameplay and stuff like that. So it's been a tricky couple of weeks, shall we say. And Peter Cummins says all good, slowly trying to get back into the hobby. Nice one indeed. Right, let me have a little drink there. So what's everybody else working on at the moment? Who's playing what? Who's looking forward to what? Who's been doing some digging maybe into some new games? What have you been looking at? While I have a little drink and keep me going. Christian sharing the link there as well for the Patreon. I need to up my game with the Patreon. I will be completely honest. I wouldn't say I've been firing on all cylinders lately, and I need to up my game a little bit. So I apologise to my current Patreons. I've maybe not spent enough time in the Patreon chat with folks, and my video content hasn't been as prolific, shall we say, as I would like it to be. But how can I put it? It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. I've been doing a lot of soul searching over the last few weeks because I'm not really happy with where things are at the moment, and so I intend to make them better, shall we say. Big Dave says just getting some scenery from Batman miniatures game. Looking forward to getting started. Nice one, mate. So what kind of scenery are you using? Are you using the is it the card terrain that comes in the starter boxes? Have you been buying some from somewhere else? Have you been scratch building it? What are you doing for Batman? VJ saying family time is more important than Patreon time. Family time always takes priority, mate, over everything, but there's an element of when you are doing something full time and people are supporting you, you still have responsibilities. So there's a fine balance to that kind of stuff as well. Clyde says February crud. Everyone seems to slow down this month, myself included. Barely forced out 5 miniatures. God, I don't think I've painted 5 miniatures this year yet. I think I've painted 2. Yeah, I've painted 2 miniatures this. No, actually, that's not true. I've painted a couple more as well. I've probably painted about 6 miniatures this month. This year, sorry. Superpunk Man says, just looking to blow everyone's mind with the Finnish painting challenge this month. Do it, mate. Do it. And Vigi said, also more than happy to help with crank out some content when I visit. It's a lot of it is about kind of focusing on what the content should be. I think what I've found is over the last couple of years of, especially after the COVID stuff and getting kind of back to normal and all that kind of thing, like my content's been all over the shop, if I'm honest. Like it's not really had a direction. I mean, it never really used to have a direction, which was kind of the appeal, I suppose. But I think it's in a... The difference was when I wasn't doing it full time, I didn't really care about kind of growing and stuff like that, if that makes sense. So it didn't really matter if I did a bad video or if it was something for me, if it was something I was interested in and everybody else wasn't as bothered about it. It was kind of less of a problem. Where when you're doing it full time, when it's your job, like it starts to kind of play on your mind a bit more and about the content and about, well, I know people are not going to watch that, and then you do some videos that you think are going to do well and they don't do well, and you do something that's kind of almost I'll do that just to kind of buy me some time to work on something else, and then that one does well, even though you weren't expecting it to do well, and so then that kind of messes with your mind of like, well, do I even know what I'm doing anymore? So you kind of go through these weird peaks and troughs of kind of imposter syndrome, and I think that's where I'm kind of going through those phases at the moment. So I need to get a little bit of focus, I think. Big Dave says MDF terrain from TT Combat mostly. Oh, nice one, mate. Nice one. Lucy said started painting my Orc Pain boss, but haven't had a lot of time or motivation to finish him. Off work next week. So we'll hopefully get him finished. Nice one. Well, can't wait to see what you achieve. My little boy's off school this week, so kind of technically I haven't got a week off, but I'm going to be doing a little bit more kind of parental childcare this week than normal, which is another reason why I've been working all weekend as well to crank through and get those videos edited, because I knew I wasn't going to have as much time this week. But we're going to have a couple of days away. We're going to go to Manchester tomorrow, and there's like a kind of like a massive big soft play thing, which is next to the indoor snow centre thing. So we're going to go there tomorrow, stay overnight, and then on Wednesday I'm taking the little guy to the Legoland Discovery place at the Trafford Centre. So yeah, so we're having a couple of days of father-son time. Andrew says, deciding what to buy before the GW price rise hits. Boarding action set is currently 420 New Zealand dollars. Hate to think what it's going up to. I always find it hard when somebody says, especially with like Aussie dollars or New Zealand dollars, I don't really know what the exchange rates are, and like I find it hard to know whether that's expensive or whether it's kind of like $420 sounds like a lot of money. Like if somebody said, oh, this Games Workshop box set is £420, like my head would probably pop. But that it's like I was watching something on Netflix the other day, and the first prize in this Korean like game show thing was 300 million. I forget what their currency's called now. It's not baht, that's Thailand. I forget what it was now. Is it won or something like that? But it was like the first prize was 300 million. I was like, I need to Google that and find out what the conversion rate was. And like the first prize was about £199,000. So it was like, oh well, it's still a big prize, but it's not quite the 300 million that I like. I kind of gulped that at first. And Andrew's saying the exchange rate is about £1 to the dollar. About £1 to $2, sorry. So it's roughly about £210, which is a bit more than we kind of pay here. But then there's all sorts of kind of things to take into account, isn't there? Like cost of living and sort of all of that kind of stuff. But I still never really know how much it is, because I always think that something is still only, it doesn't really matter how much something costs. It's still only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. So I'm never really sure whether it's like kind of whether it's massively out of line or whether it's just a little bit out of line. Type 40 TARDIS says 74 minis since New Year's, taking a bit of a pause. 74 minis, wow. I don't even think I pay 74 minis in a year. Maybe if I'm doing an army or something like that, but very, very rare. Dice Hand Entertainment says I'm working on my Dystopian Wars. I've just had a load of Dystopian Wars sent to me actually the last couple of weeks. So, he says reaching across onto his desk. There's some stuff in the drawer and that as well, but I got this is it top? How do you pronounce that? Topkapi Battlefleet set, which obviously the shiny light there doesn't really help you with. So there's that with that stuff in the back, which I've not opened to have a look at. I don't really know much about it. And then there is also this as well, which is the Richter Battlefleet set, which has a big old chunk of stuff inside it as well. But I'll be perfectly honest, I don't really know much about Dystopian Wars. For all that they keep sending me stuff, I don't know an awful lot about it, whether it's good, bad, indifferent. They're all just chips to me at this stage. I'll be perfectly honest. VJ says father-son time rocks. We had a great family day out seeing Ant-Man. Pity the film wasn't that great. Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with the film as well, mate, if I'm honest. I'm not going to kind of be one of these that jump on the bandwagon and kind of slate Marvel movies and go, oh, it's the end of cinema and the Marvel trains come off the tracks, all that kind of stuff. It was all right. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it. I wouldn't be in a rush to watch it a second time. It's probably my least favourite Marvel movie, but that's, like a bad Marvel movie still like, I still enjoy, I still feel like a big kid going and watching big comic book superhero films, so it's not all that bad, is it? VJ saying he'll stick, the cost of GW here in Australia has pretty much priced me out of their minis. That said, the generally poor rule sets and never ending book buying doesn't help. I'll stick with Mantic, much better price here in Australia. Or other miniature companies like a decent price as well. Like obviously there's a lot of American companies, isn't there? There's obviously things like Do you get like the Spanish stuff sent over, like from companies like Corvus Belli? Does that make its way to Spain? Do you get the Night Model stuff over there? Do you get the American companies like Privateer Press and sort of like Star Wars Legion and Marvel Crisis Protocol? Like, how do they all kind of stack up against each other? Let's have a little look. Yeah, Cleo's saying Ant-Man overall was meh, but the visuals were inspiring. It was certainly a good-looking film, shall we say. The story was a bit weak. Super Pumpkin Man says, well, of last week I have 8 new large models. My sister's got me 7 HG Gundams. I'm not even going to pronounce all them names. Loads of Gundam stuff. I don't know much about Gundam, if I'm honest. Vijay says, that said, I'm mostly playing board games these days since I moved to a larger city and have access to a weekly board game group. Very nice, mate. I'm glad you've got a little bit of board gaming going on there. I thought that said a half scale Boba Fett there. I was going to say that's quite some size. A 1/12 scale. RG says, playing Final Girl and started Marvel United. I thought because of chibis it wasn't going to be it wasn't going to be light. I was wrong. Interesting. Type 40 TARDIS says, the Richter set has my mini design in it. Which one's that then, mate? Let me know which one it is. Let's have a little look. As much as I think that they are good quality miniatures, they all look quite similar, like the basic ships. Some of the ones with the big weapons and things look pretty cool, but they're all relatively similar looking, I'll be honest. Cloud City Gaming, hello there. Says, I've done 2 armies for Kings of War and I'm working on a 3rd, which is a GW army converted for use in Kings of War. 750 salamanders, 1,000 points of undead, and a 2,300 Basilean army, and done a 4x4 cemetery table. Very nice. Greg Cherry, hello mate, how are you doing? He said he painted 340 minis last year. I'm at over 50 so far this year. I tell you what, people are on a different level compared to me. Lots of different projects, so usually something refreshing. Vijay says, the early Marvel films were so good that the new ones, while perfectly fine, don't inspire the same excitement. I think the difference these days, from what I can kind of, like, my own personal opinion, is they have this obviously much bigger, like, kind of overarching story arc now, which they're looking at like over a 10-year period now, where when they first started with things like Iron Man and kind of the original Avengers, I'm not really sure that they had like a 10-year plan back then. They probably had like maybe like a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan. And so the stories were maybe a bit more focused, and they were still introducing characters in those films, so you kind of feel more about, you get more information about the character. Like, it feels quite hard now. Like, so in this new Marvel film, they're fighting against Kang the Conqueror. Kang is this mighty, all-powerful thing. If anybody's familiar with Marvel stuff, like he's as big a baddie as it kind of gets. But there was never really the sense of like dread or threat from it. Like that's the problem now, is you've got these really powerful heroes and these really powerful enemies, and it all starts to just feel a bit samey a little bit now, unfortunately. Type 40 Tyler says, you can build the sky ships as flying drills. Just not my watch flying there. Let's have a little look. It does show you the flying drills, actually. Called Irkutsk. Very, very small at the bottom there. You can just see down here that it gives you that option. Very nice, mate. I quite like that one. VG says, yeah, we get Privateer Press, Knight and others in a few places, and while not cheap, they aren't the same markup as GW, although close if you get a 20% GW discount. Okay, so if you're getting 20% off the thing is, in the UK, 20% off everything is pretty standard, and this is where it all gets a little bit like, this is why we don't even like think about GW prices the same way kind of maybe the Americans or Australians think about them. Yes, they're a little bit cheaper with the exchange rates and stuff because they're produced in the UK, but then like 20% off is just the standard. Like, if you're not getting 20% off, you're either choosing to buy direct from GW for reasons, or you're supporting like a locally friendly gaming store that doesn't give as big a discount. But if generally every kind of miniatures line in the UK can be bought at 20% off somewhere, really, and that's what it's kind of, it's almost devalued stuff a little bit in that respect. Clyde saying, we all know who the paint and assembling machines are in this group. Andrew says, as an ex-retailer of gaming product here in New Zealand, one hard part was finding distributors that reached this far down the globe. Yeah, it's something you kind of take for granted these days, don't you? I mean, we're quite obviously fortunate in terms of the fact that we are almost in the middle of the wargaming world, if you like. Like, stuff coming in from the States being distributed into the UK is never that hard a thing. And coming in from mainland Europe. And then obviously there's a lot of stuff's made or is certainly sort of, their companies are in the UK. You kind of, we're a little bit kind of blind to it, I think, to see just how more difficult it is to pick things up, like the further around the globe you go. VG says, Mantic are significantly cheaper, especially the army boxes. Generally around 150 Aussie dollars for a mega army, and 150 barely gets you a couple of GW squad boxes. Well, that's quite interesting. There's obviously a much, like, they're not as, it's not hugely different in the UK between the Mantic and the GW stuff these days. Mantic is obviously cheaper, but not to the point where you would kind of like, where it's like an absolute no-brainer, like, kind of thing. Iron says, painted 84 Empire of Dust skeletons and 5 Tau Fire Warriors so far this year. Way more than I painted last year. That's a good start, mate. That is a good start. Jonathan Dawson, hello, mate. He says, it's great to be on the live chat. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Sumberland says, I'm preparing terrain and stuff for our big Rangers of Shadow Deep day on Saturday. We're planning to play several scenarios, and I'm very much looking forward to it because we only make it twice a year. I like that. I like the idea of that, mate. I like that. Christian saying, get your BlackJack Legacy t-shirts and hoodies from the Teespring store there. I think it's about time I designed some new ones, actually. It's been a long time since I designed some new merch, shall we say. Greg saying, can't recommend just can't recommend it. Can't recommend the new Blood and Plunder starter enough. 2 boats, 26 minis, token, dice, etc. for $100 on Amazon. Yeah, sounds good, man. Andrew says, all of the UK lines I got from a US distributor, so that went through one exchange rate conversion before it got to me, and that's when it starts to get a little bit kind of a bit cheeky, doesn't it? Yeah, unfortunately, everybody's taking their pound of flesh out of it, aren't they? Super fun mechanics, but light but engaging. Nice, mate. Super Pumpkin Man says, the only time I see local game store give discounts on GW stuff is on older minis that are not used anymore or holiday sales. It's funny, it's definitely very much in the UK. It's just standard, basically. Like, pretty much all of the big sort of the big games stores in the UK, people like Element Games, people like Goblin Gaming, people like Firestorm, people like The Outpost, Wayland Games, like 20% just seems to be standard. So if you're opening up a gaming store in the UK, and this, I looked to open a gaming store a number of years ago. Now I'm probably going back probably at least 15 years ago. If you're going to open up a gaming store basically and have a web store with it, if you're not selling it at 20% discount, like what else can you do to compete with like the big guys, if it, like, kind of thing? You need to either hold lots and lots of stock and be able to ship things out super fast. So your customer service in terms of getting things out needs to be absolutely nailed on. Of which the big guys hold a lot of stock because they've got more money and they've got bigger warehouses and stuff. You need to be 20% discount just to kind of compete, because if you're like a new store that nobody's heard of, why come to you when you're given 10% discount when you can go somewhere else and they're giving 20%? Or you need to have the kind of store that is like a destination type of place where people really want to come and support it because it's fantastic for gaming, it has awesome tournaments, has really nice food or something like that. So it's really tough basically. You have to sell a 20% discount really to even kind of like sort of compete. And when I looked at the kind of margins of stuff, by the time you're selling things at a 20% discount, it's just not even there. It's hardly even worth starting up at that point in time. And it's one of the reasons why GW have been creeping their price up in the UK recently to retailers, but keeping their RRP the same. Because I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to kind of get rid of some of those discounts. They're trying to get the retailers to eat up the kind of the margin rather than putting the price up to customers. And obviously that hasn't had the big effect that they wanted. And so I'm assuming that's why prices are going up by whatever they're going up by now. Yeah, VJ says it's definitely the no-brainer level between Mantic and GW here. I think the place I get my Mantic stuff also does a 10 to 15% discount on them. Wow. Great Storm says, can't wait for my Blood and Plunder Kickstarter arriving. AMC painted about 5 Malifaux crews and 15 or so Marvel United. Maybe more. Lost track. Good going. Good going. And Jonathan Dawson says, just putting some magnets on my Wild West Exodus minis. Trying not to stick my fingers together. I hate super glue. I absolutely hate super glue when it comes to sticking metal models or sticking resin models or sticking magnets on things. I hate super glue. I've had better days with not super glue, shall we say. Right, let me just top my drink up there with the last of my can. Cheers, folks. But yeah, so yeah, content wise, I've been kind of, I've got half of the video for the behind the scenes of this room's being filmed. Like I wrote a script for it, the stuff I wanted to talk about. I filmed at the camera. I've edited that down. Now I need to do all the B-roll stuff that's like over the top, showing you the bits of the room that I'm talking about and all that kind of things. So that's like half finished at the moment. I've got, so this week coming, we've got tonight's stream. We'll have an interview with Colin from Battle Systems about Maladum coming out either tomorrow or Wednesday. I haven't decided. It's going to come out this week, but it's uploaded. It's ready to go on YouTube. I just need to put it live. And then probably Friday, I'll do the video with Leo from Parabellum, where we talk about Conquest and about Parabellum and about sort of ideas around game design. And I'll be honest, I really enjoyed the chat with Leo. Parabellum are a company that have some very different ideas, shall we say, about how games should be produced and how communities should be run. And I found it quite refreshing. It's not very often you hear companies have those kind of opinions. So yeah, it was really good. I'm looking forward to that one. Well, I know what he says. I'm looking forward to releasing the video, I should say. Jed says he's super gluing those goblins to their base. It's a pain in the hoop. Yeah. See you when you get back, VG. Thank you, mate. Yeah, super glue can be annoying, but I hate glitter with a passion. I have an almost sort of abnormal kind of hatred and fear of glitter. I hate it when you get Christmas cards and they're covered in glitter and you open the envelope and there's glitter all over your fingers. I hate all that kind of stuff. What a miserable old fart. Yeah, I am not a fan of that kind of bits and pieces. But yeah, tonight's main topic, the chat that we were just talking about before, the main kind of, you know, like there's always a main topic, something to get the juices flowing, is about maybe I was wrong about the wargaming hobby. And the topic for tonight started off as one thing, and by the time I'd kind of written down my thoughts and made some notes, it ended up as something else a little bit. So it'll be interesting to kind of chat about that when we get to it. But yeah, we'll have a little bit more on that now. We'll see what you lot have all been up to first. I'll always do the record and clip it out thing for those that don't catch it live tonight as well. But yeah, that's the topic for this evening. Jess says, I spent a decade introducing burlesque performers on stage. The glitter it gets everywhere. I tell you what, mate, did you have your beard back then as well? Because I can imagine that's like a proper like a bit of a safety concern, all that glitter in that beard. Unless of course you liked having a glittery beard. That's probably a different story for a different day, I suppose. So what's everybody's plans this week? What you all up to? Is anybody got any games planned? Who's painting what? Just as saying, I glitter magnet. No, hated it. It's one of them things, isn't it, where you'd be just constantly just trying to like brush it out, but it becomes like staticky. So like it's not going anywhere, is it? It just gets stuck in the brush and then it gets back in the hair. Yeah. People without a beard, mate, they just don't know like these problems, do they? Clyde said he's got to finish some ancient Greeks so I can count them done. I tell what. So what you painting minis for at the moment, mate? What have you got something? A game that you're particularly doing? The ancient Greeks is not something I'm familiar with. Is there a particular game that you're playing for those? Sam, nice to see you in, mate. How are you doing? He said he's mostly painting Wild West Exodus and making podcast content. I look forward to it, mate. I do listen to your podcast, actually. I listen to a lot of podcasts because I like to put my headphones in when I go to sleep on a night time, and I listen to like so many different podcasts on loads of different gaming systems and stuff. But I do listen to yours as well, Sam. Anna says, I've been converting a room to a YouTube studio. It's easier said than done. It is easier said than done, Anna. Especially when you're, like, if you're limited for space, you have to come up with some very creative kind of ways to do things. Like, for example, I've 3D printed some little brackets that are screwed to the bottom of my desk so that when I'm doing these live streams, my laptop slides into those little brackets and the screen kind of pops up out of the end of the desk, so I don't have to have the laptop on the desk, and it just means it's kind of like it's a little like it gives me more desk space. And the idea, it's not so bad for when we're doing live streams like this, but if I do the painting streams, which I'm planning to bring back, it means I've got to keep the desktop area clear for when I'm putting paints down and models, and when the camera's looking at it, so I can't have the laptop on the desk so I can read people's chat and stuff. So yeah, so now it looks like I've got a screen that comes out the bottom of my desk. So it's little things like that you start to kind of come up with ideas just to try and sort of come up with creative ways to make a small area more usable. Jonathan Dawson saying, hoping to paint a couple more of these Wild West Exodus models, which I'm loving. The game's great too. So which faction have you picked up, mate? Which faction are you going with, and which models are you looking to paint? Clyde said, Ancient Greeks for Broken Legions. It's an Osprey Blue Book game. More fantasy Roman era, small skirmish. Interesting, mate. Not something I've heard of. RG's varnishing these painting entries tomorrow, and then have a K-class steam submarine to put together. Steam and submarines, you know that doesn't end well. Ian says he painted some archers from the Legion of the Red Serpent MMF campaign. MMF. Do I know what that is? No, I don't know what that is. Oddly, just because I backed it and the guy asked to see some painted minis, so I got some spun up to paint, but then some Rambutans. I always find it really interesting, the absolute variety of different minis and games that you lot all play. Like, I thought I was kind of aware of quite a lot of different stuff that goes on in the hobby, but I'm not nowhere near as knowledgeable as all you lot put together. Greg says, anyone else feel bad or think negative of a game that you homebrew rules or scenarios, squad building restrictions? Anyone else feel bad or think negative of a game that you homebrew rules or scenarios? I find when playing with kids or beginners, I do, and it's so refreshing. I don't feel bad. I don't think anybody should ever feel bad about a game, mate. I think at the end of the day, games are just there to have fun. Like, and if there's something that you find is too sort of technical or too difficult for younger players, or even too difficult for new players, or you just find it's a bit overly complex for kind of the kind of fun that you want to have, you should never feel bad about kind of rewriting the rules to fit your own needs. And yeah, Clyde's saying something similar there. If it works, it works, especially if you improve the fun for all involved. Absolutely, mate. I'm 100% behind that one. Right, so I think what we'll do now then is I think I will click over and I'll find my notes here that I was writing for tonight's main topic on the stream, and we'll do all the clicky jiggery pokery stuff as well, so I can record it. Because tonight, what I want to talk about is something that's kind of been playing on my mind a little bit over the last few weeks, and I've done a little bit of shall we say, retrospective, or a bit of looking back and a little bit of self-reflection. That's the word I was looking for. And and kind of thinking about wargaming in general and about the stuff that I enjoy. And so I wanted to talk about maybe I've been wrong, or maybe I was wrong about the wargaming hobby. So to me, the wargaming hobby has always really been about just playing games, collecting cool minis, and just being able to just sit and paint, just to relax, really, just to kind of sit there, sort of put a podcast on, put some music on or something, and just sit and switch my brain off when I've had a busy week or whatever. And when I first started in this hobby, that's exactly the reason I got into it. I started in it with painting Games Workshop miniatures. I didn't do any gaming. I didn't read any of the books or any of the lore or any of that kind of stuff. I just I picked up some models and I picked up some paints, and I used to do it just to kind of switch the brain off and just sit and relax. And over a period of time, and it was probably maybe 12 months, 18 months, I amassed this kind of collection of painted miniatures, and I thought I should probably kind of try and find out about sort of playing the game, really. It would be good to do something with them. I've got all this stuff. It'd be good to find out something to do with it. So I tried my first game of Games Workshop, which was 40k. I didn't enjoy it, but I did find Malifaux. And so I started painting some absolutely beautiful models. I really enjoyed playing the games. I went to a few events, and after a period of time, I just kind of felt that I'd burned out a little bit on just playing that one game and only that one game. So I looked for something else to play, and I found War Machine. And again, I picked up some really interesting models. I really enjoyed sitting painting them. I met some really nice guys who were kind of like, we started playing with playing the game together. We went to loads of events and tournaments, sort of went away for weekends. I had a really, really sort of good time with wargaming back then. And then as life does, it sometimes throws you some curveballs. Things changed for me, and I had to take a bit of a break from the hobby, basically. I didn't have the time, I didn't have the money, and I had to stop playing. And I sold all of my miniature stuff. I sold all of my paints. I sold all of my models. Sold everything because I needed the money. And I had a big break from wargaming. And then eventually things settled down, and kind of like life started to get a little bit better. And I started to miss wargaming, and I wanted to get back into it. So I started to sort of like pick up some paints again, pick up some models. But the difference this time around was that essentially I was in a position where I had a much better job by this point. Financially, I was in a much more stable place, and I was kind of buying more stuff than I'd ever bought in the past. I was basically just buying the stuff that I like the look of. And I ended up really buying stuff that I just never really gave enough time to. I wasn't really kind of spending the time painting them. I might get them built. I read through the rule books and stuff like that, have a look at them. I might get a little bit of paint on some of them. But I certainly wasn't kind of playing the amount of games that I assumed I would when I thought it was a good idea to buy the stuff. At this point, I kind of joined a local club. I'd started collecting some Age of Sigmar stuff. I joined a local club. Guys were really good fun to play with, and I was starting to kind of enjoy playing again at that point. But unfortunately, because of a combination of things, like the job I had meant I wasn't always I didn't have a fixed schedule. Some weeks I would be working away, some weeks I would be at home. And so I couldn't always attend the gaming clubs. And also the guys that I played with were very much at the competitive kind of side of wargaming as well. And they like to chase the meta. And unfortunately, I basically got to a point where I just kind of stopped playing because I neither had the time nor the inclination really to kind of keep up with that constant meta changing and the constantly kind of sort of wanting to always be up to speed with the game, where the latest rule changes or the latest kind of the latest models have come out and all that kind of stuff. Now at this point I'd started doing my YouTube channel, so there were a few folks who I kind of spoke to online, but I wasn't really getting any face-to-face gaming in on any real frequency anyway. And my job kept me really busy. I was traveling a lot. And looking back, I probably used that as an excuse as to why I wasn't really playing as many games as I wanted to. However, I think if I'm being honest with myself, the real reason was really the fact that I just couldn't settle on a gaming system that really held my attention for long enough. There was always a reason why I would kind of flip-flop between different games. It might be there was something new coming out, or I'd see the new shiny thing, and I like, you know, oh God, I've really got to have those models. I really want that. This new box set looks fantastic. Or I was thinking of like content for the channel of like, oh, well, you know, like I need to make new content. I need to have this latest new stuff. But I basically just kind of, there was always a reason why I was kind of looking at something different or something new. And I can probably say, in all honesty, I would say let's say over the last 3 years or so, there's probably only really been 3 games that I've picked up that have really motivated me to want to keep playing it, want to keep buying the stuff, and want to keep painting it as well. And kind of delving into the background and into the lore and that type of stuff. And those 3 games have been Warcry by Games Workshop, they've been Marvel Crisis Protocol from Atomic Mass Games, and they've been God Tier from Steamforged Games. And if I'm being probably like really kind of true to myself and really honest, the hobby experience of a lot of games that I've kind of played over the last, like, let's say 3 to 5 years, just hasn't really grabbed me. It hasn't grabbed me enough to make me want to keep spending money and stuff and collecting and painting them. Like, there are some games that I've played that are really good, but I get the same connection to them that I do like with a board game. So for example, like, I know I'm going to have a fun time playing it. I'm happy to play it, but I don't feel the need to kind of buy all the expansions. I don't feel the need to kind of, to paint the minis or anything, that kind of stuff. Like, I don't feel the need to immerse myself in the world of the game kind of thing. Like, some miniature ranges are just okay. The quality of the miniatures are okay. You know, they're all right for the money kind of thing. There's a weird phrase about if you squint, it looks mint. That kind of thing. Some minis fall into that kind of characteristic. There are other ones that might have fantastic games and they might have some really, really high quality minis, but the entire range isn't of the same quality. So like these ones I really like, but if I want to play this game, I've got to buy all these ones that are not quite so nice as well. So why would Warcry and Marvel Crisis Protocol and why would God Tier fall into this kind of category? So let's leave God Tier to one side for the minute, because I want to come back to that one. But what do Warcry and Marvel Crisis Protocol kind of have in common that makes me want to collect and makes me want to paint and play those games? So the first one is, at no point in the however long, 5 years, 6 years I've been doing YouTube, has anybody ever sent me anything for those games for free. I've not been sent starter sets. I've not been asked to review them or anything like that. I've gotten into those 2 games like under my own steam kind of thing. I've gone and looked for demos. I've bought the starter sets. I've bought the models. Everything I've got for them has been stuff that I've kind of paid for myself, shall we say. Another thing that they've both got in common is with both games, I should say, I was completely wrong about them when I first had an opinion of what I thought those games were like. I had preconceived ideas about how I thought the games played, or what I thought the rules were like, or what I thought of the value of the products. And then when I actually kind of did a little bit of digging and maybe got a demo or looked a little bit harder, I realized I was completely wrong about those 2 games. The third thing is, they both have fantastic quality miniatures, in my opinion anyway. Like, I love sitting down to paint, and I find it really therapeutic. And these mini ranges, I can say, have both given me kind of some really sort of relaxing, nice painting sessions where I've just picked up the models and just sat and kind of drifted away into a bit of a kind of like a nice little zen zone and enjoyed painting those minis. Like, I've painted minis for other games which have been an absolute acting frustration. I've hated putting them together. I've not enjoyed kind of like sort of working with them. The quality of the materials hasn't been fantastic. Some of the sculpts haven't been great. There's been areas on the miniatures where you can't even really tell what they are because they've kind of moved a little bit in the mold or something. And I've essentially just kind of battled through the painting process but not really enjoyed it. And I think this is where the lines have become a little bit blurred about I do this for a job versus I'm doing this for a hobby kind of thing. Like, I think with hindsight, looking back, there are certain models that if I'd been doing it for a hobby, I would have just kind of pushed them to one side, and I wouldn't have even probably bothered to finish painting them. And the fourth thing is that both of these games, when I play them, I can win or I can lose, and it's kind of irrelevant. I've just had fun playing them. It's like the fun is in the playing the game, not in the winning or the losing kind of thing. And I finished them and I couldn't wait to play them again. Now, God Tier I mentioned. God Tier is a little bit of a different beast when it comes to kind of me and my hobby time. And initially, again, I thought it wasn't a game for me. When it came out after the Kickstarter, there was very little noise about it. I didn't really hear much, and I assumed that it wasn't all that great. However, there was a couple of people who told me, oh, you should try it, it's really good. And then coincidentally, Steamforged got in touch and offered me a couple of starter sets just to kind of have a review of the game. And I spent some time with it and absolutely loved it. It was so much better than I kind of imagined that it could be. And I really did kind of sort of fall in love with it as a game system. I think the quality of the minis is fantastic. I really like those one-piece minis. I love the fact that they are one piece, because it means that I can kind of treat it almost with that kind of board game mentality of it's ready to go out of the box. I don't have to paint them, but I can paint them if I feel that I want to. And I enjoyed painting the God Tier minis that I have painted. And also because there's no factions, I don't have to worry about any of the list building stuff that I'm never really a massive fan of. And I can just buy the models, the champions that come out that I really like. But the biggest thing for me with God Tier, I think, is that it kind of scratches a competitive side to me that I've got. I am quite competitive. I'm quite competitive in life. I'm competitive when it comes to sports. And actually, I'm quite competitive when it comes to miniature games. But I don't really give any game enough sort of time to really sink in and get the in-depth kind of mechanics and the in-depth tactics that you sometimes need with bigger scale miniature games. God Tier really ticks that kind of competitive game for me. For some reason, it's a quick to learn game. It just seems to work with the way my brain works, and I see things in God Tier that I probably wouldn't see in other games when it comes to sort of synergies between models. And it means I can kind of keep up with the game as well because of its release schedule. I can keep up with it without having to kind of dedicate my life to it. Its rules don't change. The stats don't change. There's not like a new release every couple of weeks that I have to kind of like learn all of the new stuff about. I really enjoyed the Creator Clash, and going to there, I think, gave me a renewed kind of appreciation for just how good God Tier is. And I really wish that it had a more sort of vibrant sort of competitive community in the UK. Now, that might be changing in the very near future. Steamforged have just announced that they're going to have like a UK Masters tournament at UK Games Expo this year. They're obviously doing all of the events at Adepticon, and they've got some plans, shall we say, that they've shared with me about what the plans are for this year going forward. And I can see God Tier getting a real kind of a second push this year. But yeah, it's a game that lets me play both casually and competitively without it needing to be like my only game kind of thing. Now, recently, and I mentioned this earlier on, I had a demo of Conquest, Last Argument of Kings by Parabellum Games, and I really enjoyed that too. And it ticked a lot of those same boxes that both Warcry and Marvel Crisis Protocol did. It's another game that I had preconceived ideas about, and that I was completely wrong. I think the models are fantastic. That they're not all to my aesthetic, but there are enough of them that I like. There's enough that I really like them, and I can definitely see me painting a whole army and not having to I like these ones, but not these ones, so I'm not doing the whole thing kind of thing. But yeah, the game, again, it seems to be relatively simple to learn. There's got a lot of depth to it, and I think the lore and the background is amongst some of the richest that I've kind of seen amongst tabletop games. We kind of take things like 40k and Warhammer Fantasy almost for granted, really, with their rich kind of background and the lore. But if you look outside of that, not many games really have that kind of that richer lore and background. But once you start digging into Conquest, you'd be surprised just how much is in there. So when I started kind of like plotting out what I wanted to talk about tonight, I thought I thought the end point that I was getting to was essentially that my gaming tastes have changed over time, that the games that I like now are not the games that I like then, and things have really changed in how I see wargaming, and that basically I've adjusted the games that I play. But actually what I found through going through this kind of process is that I haven't really changed my tastes. I haven't really changed my opinions. What's probably changed is the way I see wargaming through that lens of probably making content and looking at it from a different perspective, and instead of looking at it like it was like my hobby kind of thing. And with that kind of self-reflection, I'm starting to focus on the bits of the hobby that are really important to me. So first of all, what I've decided is really I need the minis to be great, not just good. And I don't think I kind of really realized this in the past. I've said, like sometimes, minis just need to be good enough, really. Like, at the end of the day, they're just plain pieces. But for me, I really enjoy painting miniatures. And to really enjoy painting the minis, like, I need to enjoy the minis as well. And there's been times when I've really kind of fallen out of love with painting. And I've realized with like kind of reflection that I haven't really fell out of love with painting minis. I've just really fell out of love with painting the minis that I was painting. And it's become a chore rather than actually like a pleasure. And really painting poorer quality minis that I really have no connection with is not really that much fun. Secondly, I do love a rich background to the miniatures games that I play. Like, can I watch a movie or a TV show about it? Can I listen to podcasts about it? Can I listen to audio books? Can I read a book? Like, that kind of stuff is actually, it's more important to me than I probably like realized. And there are a lot of games out there that are really good games, but I have no connection to them outside of moving some pieces around on a table kind of thing. And I think to me, I've found that's quite important. Even if we consider games like Warcry and Marvel Crisis Protocol, they both have kind of rich backgrounds, maybe from different elements. Like sort of Warcry is cemented within that Age of Sigmar world and the world of Games Workshop, and Marvel Crisis Protocol is obviously cemented within that universe of Marvel's comics and their books. But it gives me the opportunity, like when I sat and painted my Groot and Rocket minis, I had Guardians of the Galaxy on in the background, and it was just, I wasn't really watching it, it was just kind of on and I was listening to it, but it just gave me that kind of like little bit of sort of a bit of inspiration to kind of to paint those minis. I think thirdly as well, like does the theme of the game sort of, does it feel like the game, if that makes sense? Does the game feel like the theme it's trying to portray? Like, or could I just be playing any game with any models, and it's kind of irrelevant what that theme is? Theme is something that's quite important to me as well, that I've kind of realized. And lastly, do I have to kind of commit my whole life to it? Do I have to make this my one and only game to be able to kind of sort of get the most out of it? And if that's the case, it's probably not for me. So there's other things that I would look at as well. Things like sort of look out for community involvement, like at local player bases, that kind of thing. But I think this has really helped me realize that maybe I've been wrong about the wargaming hobby. I think I'm starting to realize now what people see in Warhammer 40k. And whilst it's not for me, it's definitely not a game that I want to really get involved in so much. I can see why folks love it. I can see why people maybe pay more than your average prices for the miniatures and for the books and things, and why they keep coming back for more. And essentially, really, for me, and I think for a lot of other people, it's not just about painting minis and playing games. It's about really enjoying the painting experience. Like with the minis that you connect with. Like when you're painting those minis, you want to kind of feel something about it. It's about playing games that leave you wanting to play again straight away and leave you with stories about like the game that you've just played. It's about throwing yourself into that world of the miniatures and the stories that fire up your imagination and make you want to paint more and make you want to play more games. Even if you don't paint as much as you'd like to, or maybe you don't play as many games as you'd like to, it's just about feeling connected, and that sometimes can be feeling connected with a community of other people who also love that same thing too. So I think that's like sometimes we kind of forget why we do something, and we get swept up in the new releases with the fear of missing out. We get swept up in the drama and the negativity, and this is all the noise that is there, like, around our hobby. And sometimes it's just worth taking a bit of a step back, remembering what you're enjoying in your hobby, and kind of remember to do more of that, and maybe do less of the stuff that you don't like quite so much. So yeah, that is what I wanted to talk about tonight. I've been having some moments of self-reflection of late, because I'm not happy with certain aspects of what I'm doing channel wise. I'm not happy with certain aspects of my hobby, and I'm maybe not enjoying some aspects of it as much. And I think, like, exactly what I've just talked about really is kind of the root of it. I think I've gotten to a point where I've confused sort of doing stuff for content and doing stuff for work with doing stuff for my hobby. And yes, you don't always have to like your job, kind of thing. You don't always have to, like, sort of spend time on there. You don't have to, like, sort of, not everything I do for content has to be kind of like my most favorite thing in the world. And variety is good to have. But when I'm spending big chunks of time painting armies or painting miniatures or reading rules or, like, reading up and researching stuff, it's kind of, it blurs the lines between what's your hobby and what's your job, kind of thing. Let's have a little look here. Super Pumpkin Man saying, yeah, unless it's Curse City, right? Do you know what? If you wanna house rule the rules for Curse City, you go ahead and do it. I was just frustrated that I had to from day one. That's what it was. Jonathan saying his Wild West Exodus faction is the Enlightened, and he's painting the Murder of Helion, the flying zombie construct. Very nice, mate. So he's also got a Mythos faction, which I believe you can now use in Wild West Exodus. Yeah, I'd read that, mate. I don't know a huge amount about it, but I had read that you could do that now as well. Yeah, Ian saying, I hear you. First and foremost, gaming is a hoarding addiction. Yeah, and I certainly went through that phase where, like, and I can't even really put my finger on how it happened, but I definitely got to a stage where I was literally just buying stuff almost for the sake of buying stuff. Like, I've got so many boxes of things on my shelves that I've literally done nothing with. Like, I remember buying the Necromunda game, done nothing at all with it. I've got Space Hulk. I think I've played it once. I've got a few editions of Underworlds. Not really done a huge amount with those kind of things. Like starter sets that I've been sent. It just, I don't know when it happened. And I think I was in a fortunate position of just having disposable income, really, spare cash that if I spent it, it wasn't going to kind of, you know, it wasn't stopping the bills getting paid. It wasn't stopping us having our holidays or anything like that. So you don't really notice it, unfortunately. Yeah, but it's not a good place to be in, I would suggest. Greystorm says, did one of my first videos the other day. I don't have a studio by any means, but it still took about 40 minutes or so to set up. It's one of the reasons that having a studio type setup like this is beneficial for me, because I can literally walk in here, turn on the computer, turn on my lights, turn on my camera, and I'm kind of ready to go. Because what I was finding was that actually, like, before I got like a studio setup that I was happy with, I was constantly moving cameras and moving lights. Like now, it's just a case of flicking a few switches, and that's why that looks the same every week, because I don't really have to kind of move things around. Tony says, I just don't play games. They're too people-y for me. Do you know what, mate? There's a lot to be said about that. I am definitely finding that I'm finding it harder, I think, to socialize is not the right word, because I'm not like, you know, like it's not that I don't want to go out or anything like that. It's not that I don't like people or anything like that kind of thing. I'm just finding it harder to sort of, I think I'm finding it harder to socialize in terms of like reasons to meet up with other people, as opposed to I'm finding it hard to socialize because I don't want to do it. And I think it's just like I've spent years like in jobs where I was constantly surrounded by people it was quite nice to have some time to myself when I wasn't working. And then obviously pandemic comes along and lockdowns, and at the same time as I sort of ended in my old job and I'm working on my own now, I think I just find it really hard. And it's a funny thing that nobody ever talks about it, and like it feels kind of weird even talking about it now, really. But nobody ever really talks about it. But like when you're in your 40s, like it's quite difficult to make new friendship groups. Like it's like, where do you go? What do you do kind of thing? And even games groups, like whilst like, you know, it's dead easy to see it, like just get yourself out there and go to a games group kind of thing. You're essentially kind of turning up and playing a game for a couple of hours and then leaving. Like the last time I was there, I had a really good time. I really enjoyed it. But all I talked about was the game for like 2 hours. Like we played the game finished, I went home kind of thing. Like it's not, and then and that person I played against, I probably won't play again for a little while. So it's like, I think it's like, it's those kind of things as well. You start to think about, like, the impact like on your hobby stuff, because if you're not really playing games as much as you want to, then you have to make sure that the hobby side of it is enjoyable, and that you're painting stuff that you have some kind of connection to, and that you're painting things not just for the sake of painting, because it's not painting necessarily that's the relaxing part. It's the painting something that you want to get finished. It's the painting something you want to paint, I think, is the relaxing part. Jess says, coming back to gaming is kind of cool. It's like when you first start, but you know a bit more and tend to have more patience and skill, and sometimes money, but worse eyes. Tell me about the worse eyes bit. I definitely need to get my eyes checked out. Clyde saying, the minis and the lore of Malifaux I'll probably never ditch. Yeah, I'm a bit like that as well, mate. I've not played as much Malifaux as I'd like to, and I would love to play more of it. I've just not really had the opportunities, shall we say, of late. But you'll see when I kind of do the tour of this hobby space and this kind of studio space, I've got a lot of kind of artwork up here on the wall behind me. It's all Malifaux stuff. It is something that I have fond memories of and will continue to stick with. Clyde says, the gaming desire, although it changes, thus the palette cleanses of other small-scale skirmishes. Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. Welcome back, VJ. Christopher Smith says, I find Kill Team is my competitive game. There's also Unmatched. Unmatched is something I've heard of, mate, but never played, and it's not something I'm aware of as, like, competitive in terms of, like, I'd never hear of, like, Unmatched tournaments or something like that. But I do know a lot of people find Kill Team kind of like that kind of competitive thing. I just find Kill Team on first inspection, and again, this might be one of those things where, like, I've got preconceived ideas about it, but on first inspection, Kill Team seems a bit more complicated than I'd necessarily want to play, I think, at the moment. Sam saying, gotta be having fun even when losing. If you're getting your knickers in a twist because you lost, you aren't enjoying the game, you're just enjoying beating your opponent. Yeah, definitely. And like I said in my little kind of pitch there, like, I am quite competitive. Nobody enjoys losing, of course they don't. And I much prefer winning games. But when I've played games of, like, Warcry with, like, my brother-in-law Jason, or when I went down to Warhammer World where Anna was as well, and we played some tournament games there, like, I didn't feel bad about losing. I was having fun playing those games. And I can't say that every miniatures game I've played, I've felt like that. Like, even when getting beat playing games of Marvel, like, there's been almost this, like, Marvel Cinematic Universe story that's played out on the tabletop. And I've wanted it to, like, sort of, like, you know, right, let's go again. Let's get some different models. Let's play again with it. Like, let's create a different story kind of thing. And I can't say that I got that sort of experience from every game that I've played. And I've been really fortunate that I've had the opportunity to play lots of different games. Not everybody gets that opportunity. VJ saying Unmatched is a great little system. I honestly don't know much about it, mate. Yeah, Sam says, if you can roll nout but ones and find it funny, then I'll gladly play you. To be honest, mate, rolling ones in Conquest is a good thing. John says, falling out of love with Mantic then, have you, Andy? Not really, mate. I haven't fallen out of love with Mantic. I voted Firefight my game of the year last year, and I still stand by it. Firefight is still a great game. But I'll be perfectly honest, when it comes to the miniatures, there is a real mix of quality between some really, really nice sculpts and some old stuff that's a bit uninspiring. If I look at Firefight as a whole, when it comes to the hobby side of things, I've got an Enforcers army that I've painted up. I don't feel the need to paint more of the exact same models to just keep adding to it. I don't find the other armies that particularly inspiring. There's nothing that I really want to kind of spend money on and start painting. I was a bit disappointed with the Mason Labs release. Like, Ronnie went from saying we're not going to release any more armies because that's not really, like, you know, that's not going to attract any new players. We're going to be looking at some other stuff. To all of a sudden we're going to now release the Mason Labs army, but that Mason Labs army is just models from other ranges pulled together and put into a box. I didn't find that particularly inspiring. So yeah, it's not that I've fallen out of love with Mantic or Mantic's games or anything like that. I still think they make good games. I just don't feel connected to the miniatures. I don't feel that there's a rich background lore that makes me want to kind of spend all of my hobby time sort of painting their armies. Jess says immersing yourself into a game is important. Yeah. Clyde saying the theme of game that meets rules. Yeah, Malifaux and Pulp Alley fit perfectly. Yeah, and it's something I only think I really realised recently, that not every game's rules kind of matches the background and the lore kind of thing. Like, and I don't know why I'd never realised this before, and it's something that I talked about with Leo from Parabellum on the interview that I've done this week. And he talked about there is essentially two kinds of ways to design a game. You can design a game that fundamentally works as a game system, and then you can basically kind of like you can slap a badge on it and say, oh, that's a Warhammer game or something like that. Or you can design a Warhammer game that feels very, very thematic, really sort of the rules and the background are kind of like one in one, working together, but then you could never do anything with that rule set. You couldn't like patch it for something else and call it like sort of, I call it AOS or something like that. So there's a couple of different ways of writing games, and I don't think I'd really kind of give it that much of an in-depth thought. But if I look back over time, I think the games that I have the biggest connections with are the ones where they feel that like the theme really comes through in the rules, and the theme really comes through in the game, and it's not just a case of like Warhammer 40,000 Uno, for example. Clyde said, yeah. Matt saying the lore can make or break a game. Where was that? Did that just jump off my screen there? Let me find that back again. That really did jump up there. Excuse me. I'll find it. Yeah, the lore can make or break a game. A lot of people keep coming back to GW simply because of the lore involved. Yeah, and it's something I've kind of wondered in the past. You know, like everybody says how expensive it is. Everybody loves complaining about Games Workshop. The negativity that surrounds it it drains me a little bit. And it's one of the reasons I don't really want to get involved in it all. I'm not really one for the drama kind of stuff, but I find that seems to be all I see online when it comes to kind of 40k stuff. So why do people? Everybody says how expensive it is. Why do people keep coming back to it? And I think the more I've reflected and looked upon stuff, the more I've kind of realised is that most people don't get like caught up in the drama. Most people don't surround themselves with negativity. Most people just love painting really nice quality miniatures, and they love kind of playing these games that play these stories. It might not be the best rule set in the world for everybody, but it plays out them stories that they read in the books. Like that to me, like people who are immersing themselves in something that they absolutely love. Like it's how can that be bad? You know, that can only be a good thing. And they're happy to pay a little bit more money for stuff because they feel that it's value to them. So I can see why people love 40k stuff. It's one of, if not the richest kind of wargaming sort of systems that's out there when it comes to total immersion in that whole system. Like Games Workshop as a company are constantly releasing information, communication, new models, new stories, expanding the lore, expanding the background. If you're into that kind of stuff, I can imagine why people absolutely love it. Where was this one up to? Andrew saying, hello Andrew, by the way, says, so many games out there. I have boxes of 40k unpainted on my shelf, but currently I'm all about burrs and badges because of the narrative and the beauty of it. Excuse me, let me just grab a drink. I can say that, like, whatever it is that kind of scratches your itch, whatever it is that kind of ticks your boxes, it can't be a bad thing. I don't care whether somebody else hates it or not. You're absolutely right, mate. Alex is saying, Conquest lore and rules really got me back into larger scale gaming. I don't think I'd really kind of considered the lore in the background to Conquest. I knew they'd put a lot of work into it, but I'd not really read it until recently, and I was surprised how good it is, actually, if I'm being perfectly honest. Greg says, do you think how your channel performs and views or comments jade your views of war games or deflate your enjoyment? I tell you what I would say, mate. Excuse me. I tell you what I would say is people's comments, both positive and negative, but probably more the negative stuff, and having to be on social media a lot and seeing the negativity that comes around games and around comments and around videos and around the negativity that people make videos about in order to get views and that kind of stuff, I find it quite draining at times. And I go through these kind of ups and downs, I would say, where the negativity that surrounds the wargaming hobby sometimes, I can find it like sucks the enjoyment out of it for me. I find it like saps my soul a little bit. And the fact that I do this on my own and I don't really get to play as often as I would like to, and I don't really have like kind of face-to-face conversations with people very often about like gaming and that kind of stuff, I feel like I'm surrounded by negativity as opposed to positivity. And I think if I was having more positive conversations, I'd probably feel different about some games. So I think my channel performance is more about, I think it's more of a personal thing and less about my view of games, shall I say. Like, I'm never going to be somebody that plays 40k. I just find it's way too complex for what I want. Like, would I play a kill team? Potentially. But generally, GW games, on the whole, don't really scratch my itch. I would say that Warcry was really very much an outlier when it comes to GW stuff. And it was another reason why I was wrong about it. I thought it was going to be another one of those GW games that I would just buy and never play and kind of like, you know, just sort of, how can I put this? I'd maybe like make a video about it and then it would go on the shelf and I'd never see the light of day again, kind of thing. Like a lot of other things that I've spent money on over the years. But I was really, really surprised with Warcry. And I find it because it's like, it's a really straightforward, simple rule set. And there's not a lot of GW games like that. For what I want. Everybody, your mileage may vary, kind of thing. Everybody has the things that they love and the things that they don't love, but for me it just really works. Jez is saying, if you want games with great lore you can read a lot about, tons of books and films and TV stuff, you'll bloody love historicals. You say that, mate, but I'm not that massively interested in historical like stories and background, if you like. I must admit, I did kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole of World War II stuff when I was thinking about playing Bolt Action, and I quite enjoyed watching some documentaries and stuff, but it is quite bleak. Like I mean, it's reality, of course, it's bleak kind of thing, but whilst I found it really, really interesting, I wouldn't say it was kind of inspiring or uplifting kind of thing, where when it comes to things like fantasy or sci-fi or Marvel comic books or something like that, it's a little bit different. Alex said, I really appreciate the community involvement in the world and the fantastic group locally. The local group, I would be honest, mate, is probably part of the I mean, it's the only reason why I've even given Conquest a look, really. And it's a big part in like me thinking actually it's something that I actually might want to play, because I really enjoyed the game. I do like the models. The background is fantastic. And as a bonus, there's a local community as well. So all the little things are kind of like ticking boxes for me. Kiddo Batai says Conquest has some amazing minis and lore, plus all the rule books are free. Yeah, I did a video a few weeks ago which absolutely bombed about free rules. Who knew telling somebody about loads of games where you can get rules for free would be really, really uninteresting. If I'd phrased it differently about these are the most expensive games that you should avoid, and then just talked about the free ones, I probably would have done a lot better. Andrew, thank you for joining and being a member as well, mate. I really appreciate that. Let's have a little look here. Andrew says, I came here for the interaction with the community. I basically left Beasts of War and came here. Needed to change things up as I wasn't into the content anymore. It's interesting, mate, isn't it? Like, I think it's a real double-edged sword. Like, if you're a content creator who makes stuff about 40k, like, first and foremost, I assume that you absolutely love 40k. However, taking that aside with an assumption that that's absolutely true, there are lots of things to talk about because GW's release schedule is like an absolute avalanche of stuff. There's always new stuff. There's a mountain of background. There's loads of competitive play. There's 10 tournaments every weekend kind of thing. Like, there's loads of stuff you can talk about. Some channels make their entire business, shall we say, because they're full-time. Some of them make their entire business out of just almost regurgitating the Warhammer community news on a daily basis. And good on them. They've found their niche. They know exactly what they're doing. I think all the better to them and all the power to them for being able to do it. If you're not into GW stuff, it is very much harder to be able to create the level of content that you need to kind of sustain doing that kind of stuff. And how I've done it in the past is I've ended up spreading myself quite thin across a lot of different gaming systems, and it was less of a problem when it wasn't my job, but now it is my job. I think it's diluted a lot of stuff, if that makes sense. And I think all I really need to do is I just need to narrow my focus a little bit. I can still talk about lots of different games. I can still talk about what's in the news. I just don't have to go down the route necessarily of like having to have an opinion necessarily or like be able to play every single game, because it felt like there was a point where I was at least playing most games a few times to be able to kind of like speak with any kind of authority on them, if that makes sense. What, just out of interest, Andrew, what was it about the content that you didn't enjoy anymore? Because I know the guys at Beasts of War have changed the kind of content that they make over the years, but what was it that had changed? Matt says, I think it's the potential of the minis that we fall in love with. Like, we all get these ideas but end up not following through for various reasons. Yeah, I agree, mate, actually. But I think the potential of the minis, I think it has to come from, like, you have to really have, like, some passion in that mini, if you like there's minis that I will pick up and I think, oh, I can't wait to paint that. Like, I'm really looking forward to painting that kind of thing. And then there's other ones where I look at them and I'm not inspired. Like, there's nothing that really, I don't get that kind of like, it's like, oh, I just need to put some paint on this. Like, I could never be a commission painter. I would hate to think I was painting minis for other people, of minis I've got no kind of interest in color schemes that I don't really want to be painting kind of thing. I think I would find that really hard. Alex, I'm enjoying painting the larger scale and the spires, the brutes, monsters particularly. I do like the larger scale stuff, mate. It's one of the things I've really liked about the God tier minis. It's one of the things I've really liked about the Marvel minis. I'm looking forward to Star Wars Shatterpoint for the exact same reasons. The more I learn about that as they sort of drip feed information, the more I think it's going to be right up my street. I think it's just, I'm getting old, mate. My hands are not as steady as they used to be. My eyesight's not as good as it used to be. Painting bigger miniatures just gives me an opportunity to just kind of do sort of a nicer job on them, if that makes sense. Vijay says, the main reason I stopped buying minis games for now is because I wasn't playing them. I was playing board games, so I've moved my discretionary spending there. Yeah, absolutely the way, mate. If you like, it's like anything, isn't it? It's like don't buy, like, don't have a subscription to a magazine that you never read kind of thing. It makes perfect sense. Once I get a new man cave set up and I'm painting again, that might change. Jonathan says, I've never understood why people dump on other people's choice of game systems choices. If people enjoy it, let them have their fun, whether that's playing, building, painting, or just reading. I think what it is, mate, is we just live in a society now, and this goes way beyond gaming and stuff as well, but where everybody has an opinion and everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I think everyone feels that we should share our opinions now. And it was something I put in my notes and then I took it out actually, but there's a big difference between criticizing something, which is where you're saying that there's a problem here and here's a solution kind of thing. You're offering up kind of like real solutions to something. Like basically not liking something and then just moaning about it or sort of complaining about it without any real aim to what the point of it is. And I feel that when it comes to, like, if we narrow it down to our hobby, if you like, some people just like to complain about other people's gaming systems to almost make their gaming system sound better. Like, I always hated it when people would like dump on GW stuff to try and justify why their gaming system was better, or why people would dump on the Mantic stuff just to say why GW was better, or dump on the price of Marvel stuff. It's absolutely disgraceful. Like, I would never spend that. And it's like, well, you don't have to. That's the wonderful thing with choice. You get to choose what you spend your money on. You don't have to, but I'm comfortable with it because I'm getting value out of that product for myself. I just never understand it, why people kind of like, people just, I think, like, have an opinion, but not everybody needs to hear it sometimes, I suppose, is the answer, maybe. Says he, sitting in front of a camera with a microphone. I realise the, yeah. I realise how stupid that sounds. VG says he's got so many board games now. I've become very selective about when I'm buying and what I'm backing. Yeah, I must admit I'm kind of way off. I'm way off kind of Kickstarter stuff these days now. Jesse has still got to meet up for a cup of tea. We do, mate. We do need to sort that out. VG said in the new games group I've joined, I wouldn't really consider them friends. Some of them I actively would not be friends with. Yeah, and it's funny because like I was just saying, whilst. And Alex, who's in the chat tonight, like I would say I've probably spoken more to Alex than anybody else at that local gaming group. I don't know anybody well enough to kind of consider them friends yet, kind of thing. It would be nice to make some friends, kind of thing. What am I going to do? Am I going to go down the local pub and sit and watch a football match and hope somebody talks to me and like kind of strikes up a conversation? When you're I was going to say like a bloke in their 40s, but it's relevant for women as well. When you're a bit older, like what on earth do you do? Like, it's not that easy. Yeah, rules, lawyers, sore losers, and Euro bullies. There's a name I've never heard before. Andrew says, I think the key is finding people that want the same from the game as you, especially if you're more a narrative gamer rather than a meta chaser. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like I've mentioned before. Really, is that there's no reason why people who want a really competitive game can't play against people who want a really narrative game, as long as they both know that they want something particularly kind of different from it. Like you can have, you can have really, what's the word I'm looking for? You can have really narrative competitive games. Like they don't have to be different. It's more just about like kind of making sure both people understand what they want out of it. Jess says, I've always been canny lucky that I've always been mates with lots of gamers. I think I just basically drifted away from a lot of friends over the years, mate, like through like sort of moving around and kind of divorces and that kind of stuff. Just and changing jobs, working away, having jobs where I was basically traveling so often that I never really got the chance to spend time with people at home and things. I think it just over time it just kind of just drifted apart a little bit. Ed says, Kill Team is definitely more complex than Warcry. Yeah, that's the impression I get, mate. I wouldn't say it was necessarily like the most complex game in the world, but I think it's probably just more complex than I'm looking for, really. It's one of the reasons I've always found like the Mantic games are always dead easy to get on with. I just find that I'm not like connecting with them on a level where I'm excited to read all the background lore or paint the minis kind of thing, really, at the minute. Super Pumpkin Man says, I will say for me, is custom kit bash or a painting to look like it's from a movie or just the scheme is my favourite thing outside of having a great game with anybody. I think the vast majority of us will probably play a lot less games than we will spend time immersing ourselves in the hobby, shall we say. And that can be chatting to people online, it can be painting your minis, it can be reading rule books, it can be reading lore books, it can be watching movies or like TV shows that inspire you. Like you might be really into, let's say, you might be really into Kings of War, and you might watch kind of Lord of the Rings, or you might watch Game of Thrones or something that's giving you these kind of like fantasy inspiration or something. It might not be directly connected, but it might be something that kind of scratches that itch or gives you a bit of painting motivation or something. Matthew says, I'm considering Conquest for large scale games. Like I say, I'm not massively like sort of involved in Conquest. I've had one demo game. I'm looking at the different factions to kind of choose a faction. But early signs are is I like what I see kind of thing. Let's have a little look. I want to scroll back a bit here. There's a jumped ahead quite a bit. Let me scroll back. Where the hell was that gone? There's so much chat. Let me find where we're up to. Oh, there it was, yeah. Colin Max says, this is where I do disagree with Andy. I do love the Mantic lore. I quite like the Mantic lore myself, mate. Like, for Kings of War particularly. But there's just not enough of it. Like, it's not... Yeah. For me, it's very disconnected from the game itself. So Kings of War lore is very well written, and it's very enjoyable. But then if I play Kings of War, I don't feel like it connects to that background lore in the slightest. Like those armies, they don't feel like they have a purpose of why they're fighting, kind of thing. It doesn't mean I don't like the lore, and it doesn't mean I don't like the game, but I don't feel like that. I don't feel they're connected. Discourse Minis, good evening. How are you? Nice to see you in the chat. It's just catching up. I saw that you picked Warcry as one of your 3 big games. It was the most disappointing game I ever played. Now, that's not to say that we all have to agree on stuff. And I think it can depend upon what your experience of it was. It can depend upon what your expectations of it was. It can depend on the type of game that it was. It says the Rick Priestley rule set, bolt action, Warlords of Erewhon, Gates of Antares, the same system over and over. Yeah, but none. Warcry wasn't written by Rick Priestley, so I'm not sure if that's linked to that or if that's a completely different if that's a different thing. Ariel Sanchez says, greetings folks, I'm really enjoying repainting my old Underworld warbands along with some newer ones. They'll be perfect for a lot of mini agnostic games I'm waiting to try. Nice, mate. Great Storm says, sure, I don't plan going pro anytime. Colin says, I heard Gates died pretty badly, but my mate got the rule book as a prize and was told it was a doorstop. Gates of Antares, I was chatting to the guys who wrote Gates of Antares, and let's just say that what they said was that when 2nd edition bolt action came out, I think there was a reason why they wouldn't allow them to adapt the 2nd edition for Gates of Antares. And then what's happened is Warlord have now bought Gates of Antares from the original owners and are adapting it now to 2nd edition. So I think they've almost kind of sort of like had a plan to take it over, shall we say. VG says, I can't say I've looked at the Mantic lore much. I really don't need lore as much as just a cool theme for an army in army style games. Yeah, I mean, not everybody likes the same stuff. That's my point really. It's just for me, I think it's more important than I thought it was. Colin says, been buying the books off Winged Hussar. I really like the building of Panathor. Yeah, and I agree, mate. I've read some of the Winged Hussar books, and they're good stories, but they still don't have. They're still not really linked to the game. Like I don't read one of their books about a certain character and then think, oh, I can play that character in the game, because that character doesn't exist. Like that's a character that's been created for the story, and like nowhere in the game is that character really kind of like he's not a model, or she's not a model that I can necessarily go and buy. Big Dave says, the lore was the only reason I got into the Horus Heresy game. I love the game now, but the setting is a big part. I can imagine that, mate. I can't imagine there's many people get into Horus Heresy who don't love the Horus Heresy universe, and who for whom that hasn't been the main driver to get into. Graham's not saying have a cool gaming room so I can make it look like a little studio. Nice one. Because of Ben says, I don't think, at least in the USA, lore doesn't matter. What matters here is the competition. I can't imagine that's the same for everybody. I can imagine for pockets of communities, I think it's important. We see it here as well. There are pockets of community who are all about the gaming, and basically for them the miniatures, the painting, the lore is irrelevant. But I think there's mixtures of people. Like if it was irrelevant for everybody, then companies wouldn't spend any time or money in writing it, that's for sure. VG says, I think board gaming has definitely made me think more about theme over lore. I would agree, mate. I don't need any real kind of like theme necessarily in my board games. I'm not really that fussed about it. If I'm playing a board game, then essentially what I'm doing is I'm putting a couple of hours aside to kind of just to play a game, and then I can kind of forget about it really. Do you know what I mean? I think it's different when I'm painting miniatures, when I feel like I want to be involved in it, I want to be immersed in it, and that's when the lore and the background and the theme is important, because it's my whole hobby. It's not just I'm playing a board. Like the hobby of playing board games, and board gamers in general will play lots of different board games. Like I don't think you really get like, oh, like what do you do for a hobby? Or I play Pandemic. That's all I play. I just play Pandemic over and over again. I'm really into the lore of this kind of like this virus spreading around the world. Like you don't get people like that. People who play board games play lots of board games, and they like all of the different kind of styles of board games. They might be like a Euro gamer, or they might be more like an Ameritrash gamer, or they might like roll and write games or something like that. But they will play lots of different types of games. Where I think if you're into the miniature gaming, the miniatures are the draw, and then you immerse yourself in the world around it. Ian says, I love Mantic's rules. I'll happily pay for their army builder and the rule books, but their model quality and quality control has really damaged my desire to build their minis. Yeah, I think we might agree a little bit on that, mate. He says, wish Mantic would just sell a few models that I like as STLs. Love the Forge Father tanks, but I'll not let my hands suffer the Steel Warriors again. Discourse says, theme matters far more than mechanics for getting people into a game for sure. Would I say it matters more? I think for some people it does. I can't say that it's the same for everybody. For me, I think it does, and I've said this before. Like I will get hooked by the setting and the feel and the theme of a game much more than like, oh, the mechanics are really good kind of thing. I can forgive some like weaker mechanics in a game if I think the minis are fantastic and the setting's really cool and the background and the overall theme of it is good. I can forgive a couple of kind of like balance issues and stuff like that for sure. Jess says, Mantic's newer minis are much better. So Mantic's newer miniatures are very good. I wouldn't disagree. Their new orcs are very nice. Some of their resin stuff is fantastic. But my problem that I have at the minute is that if you're building an army, like I will give you as an example, I've got a GCPS Firefight army box set, and some of the miniatures are hard plastic, Some of them are that horrible PVC, and then some of them are resin. And the resin miniature is super crisp, looks lovely, really nice. The PVC models, I absolutely want to throw them in the bin. I hate building them. I hate cleaning them up, trying to get the little bits of kind of like sort of injection ports off them and stuff like that. You can't kind of sand them, you can't file them, you can't smooth the joins. I just hate the PVC stuff. And then the hard plastic stuff is just a bit repetitive. Like it's pretty much the same miniature over and over again for that army. And then when it comes to the GCPS, which is their they're not the GCPS, sorry, the Mason Labs, which is their brand new army, it's just a load of GCPS models with a load of Plague models that have already kind of been around for ages. And like that's fine if that's what you want, but I just don't find it inspiring. Disco saying, I love the little halflings from Mantic. Yeah, again, so perfect example. Hard plastic halflings, absolutely lovely. The PVC, I forget what it's called now, the kind of like the bore thing with the kooks on the top. Lovely looking model when you see it all painted up, but absolute pig to build. And mine came with missing parts as well, which seems to be a constant thing at the moment. Andrew says GW have changed their stance on new storylines, abandoning the clock being constantly at 5 minutes to midnight. It's really it's a really good point actually, because it's something that I've noticed is, so the conquest stuff that I've been reading about, it's an evolving storyline. It's constantly it's a moving story. It's not just this snapshot of like we're on the edge of an abyss here kind of thing. We're waiting for this bad thing to happen, and it can happen at any minute. It's not like that. It's this constant moving story. The Infinity background is exactly the same. The Malifaux background, exactly the same. It's these stories that are constantly moving forward with a progressive timeline where characters get old, characters die, you know, like things actually happen and things move on. I know that GW stuff never used to be like that. And because the old world was kind of, because it was set in the past, shall we say, there was already a finite kind of like time frame that it was all over, where if you've got something set in the future or an alternative kind of universe, you know, the timeline is the timeline kind of thing. Jess says nerd rage is the most depressing rage. It's amazing how much it can boil your piss, shall we say. Matt says theme and lore breeds passion. Ask someone about the background for their favourite game system and just watch their eyes light up and they begin to explain it to you. Yeah, I would agree, mate. Colin says, really don't get the Steel Warrior issue. I found them like building Space Marines. The problem with a lot of the dwarf models, mate, and I built a full army of the dwarf models I've built some for Dead Zone, and I've built a lot of the dwarves for Kings of War as well. Is the tops and bottoms don't fit together very well. Like, they're not hard to build, but they just don't fit very well. There's loads of gaps around them. Discourse saying Warcry felt too much like glorified version of Yahtzee. I didn't feel like I was making many tactical or strategic decisions so much as simply hoping to roll sixes. So I've had the odd game of Warcry that feels like it was a foregone conclusion before you started. However, one of the kind of the good part about it is the fact is because it's so fast, you kind of just re-rack and set up and go again kind of thing. And there's a lot of it is about the mission that you're playing, about the placement of terrain, about the different deployments as well. You kind of like you have to kind of how can I put it? You have to set up in a way that it's not one-sided to start with, and sometimes some games can be like that. I've played in Warcry tournaments and stuff where the game swung backwards and forwards, and there's been some tactical decisions about sort of deciding that I'm gonna wait with my model to make you go first so that I can do this. I don't feel that there's any more need to roll sixes it's not any worse in Warcry than it is in any other game, to be fair, from my opinion anyway. Let's have a little look here. Jess says free stuff. Give me 6% increase or give me death. For me, it felt that way. Massively disappointing. Was really looking forward to trying the game. The initiative system was very innovative, but the gameplay on the table felt lacking. It just goes to show that we all have different things that we like. Mordecai says, have you tried Kings of War Vanguard? I wish more game systems would use D8. Matt says, it's almost like GW knows a constant stream of products will drown out every company's releases. God, I wish I wasn't so cynical towards their business model. However, it is a business model. You don't have to agree with it, but it is the business model that they have. Invisible says, evening all, hope you're having a good night. Just had tea and sat down with some orc painting. Love games that give free rules that I can play with paper slips, proxies to see whether I enjoy the system. Yeah, we did that on a stream a couple of weeks ago about free games. It's surprising how many games systems that are out there that absolutely give their games, like the games systems, the rules, the stats, all for free. Andrew says, I like simple rule sets. In my 50s and no time with a teenager and a 3-year-old on my heels. Birds and Badgers, Moonstone, Gangs of Rome, and anything by Joe McCulloch. Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. Moonstone is a good game, actually. Yeah, I agree with you there, Discourse. Little bit more sort of a bit more innovative, I would say, than a lot of other games. And I like the fact that you use a relatively small amount of models. Lemur Crazy, good evening. Discourse said, I played my first real game of bolt action last night and had a blast. Nice one. VG says, Steam will get me into a game. Mechanics will actively put me off one. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. RG says, only 3 likes. No, I think there's a few more than that, mate. I think you might just need to refresh it. Colin says, I can't play bolt action. It feels off playing a game set in a conflict that my granddad may have shot people. I think there's a few people that feel that way about when it comes to World War II stuff. This goes as in, theme attracts me to a game, but if the mechanics are bad, I'll just dip. I think there's a fine line between would I say any game has bad mechanics? I think some games are maybe more complex than they need to be and not as intuitive. And I will forgive certain bits of complexity if the game's fun to play and I really like the miniatures, shall we say. But yeah, I'm trying to think, is that I'm not really sure I've played any game that has been like unplayable. It's maybe been not to my taste and a bit complex for my tastes, or maybe a bit dull, shall we say. But I wouldn't necessarily say there's been bad mechanics. I can't think of one off the top of my head anyway. I'll leave that in the comment. Too much to say in 200 characters. Okay. Right, okay. Don't have any weird war stuff yet. I'll see you playing that, yeah. Mark Zelinsky saying, you are not old, Andy. My joints would tell me otherwise, mate. Ariel says, I really like the Conquest lore. Just started building a Dweghorn army. Very nice, mate. Yeah, the Conquest lore is quite good. The Dweghorns about them being kind of slaves to the dragons and then revolting against them, I think is quite cool. Let's have a little look. Clyde, no such thing as too many games, just too little time or resources. I would beg to differ. I think you can spread yourself too thin, I think. Lemu Crazy says, another example, scale modelling also has frequent releases, but because it's not a gaming hobby, you pick what you like and build it as opposed to FOMO for what others are playing. I'm still on the fence when it comes to FOMO stuff. I think a lot of FOMO stuff is self-inflicted and people thinking that they need to have everything when they don't. Everyone is in control of their own kind of like sort of spending habits. Nobody needs to buy everything. Andrew says, Conquest, I have Spires and Wadron that needs my brush. Oh my god, I have too many games. Or maybe just not enough brushes. That might what it might be. Matt says, people get very tribal when they become invested in game systems. I get passion. I completely get people being passionate. But like tribal or like getting like angry and or like shitting on other people's games, I find just pathetic, basically. Some people like to hate. Yeah, you're not wrong there, mate. Ariel Sanchez says, my Malifaux 10 Thunders minis will do double duty for Hametsu. Yeah, they definitely will, mate. The perfect kind of theme for it. Matt says, yeah, the older you get, the harder it becomes to make new friends. It's kind of odd because you're still a social creature, but I think you end up comfortably set in your ways. Yeah, do you know what it is? I think and like lockdown and all that kind of stuff definitely didn't help matters, and working on my own doesn't help matters either. And especially the fact that like my oldest sons are like 21 this year as well. So like sometimes my son will ring me and go, oh, like do you want to go to the pub and watch the match or something like that? And it's become very easy for the limited amount of social interaction that I have ends up being with my sons, because we can go to the pub and watch the match kind of thing or something like that. And I don't want like my sons to become my friends, if that makes sense. Like, I want them to be my sons, and I want to enjoy going out with them like now and again, but I don't want them to be my default, like, I've got nothing to do, shall I see if my son wants to go to the pub kind of thing. Let's have a little look here, because this is plenty of chat. I'm never going to keep up with all of this kind of thing. Blair saying, evening all, just back from the club to play test the game for Hammerhead. Nice one. Vijay says, Euro bullies is what I call people that bully people into playing their long, boring Euro games. Now I know what you mean, mate. They walk into the meetup, set up their huge game without asking if anyone wants to play. Now I know exactly what you mean, mate. And just pressure people into playing their pet game. Orgy says, two things. I think people have become far more intolerant of other people's viewpoints since COVID and Brexit. For me, I'm more interested in the game mechanics rather than the law. I think there's definitely a balance, I think. Definitely a balance. And some people, like for some people, the game is the most important thing, and the quality of the minis are irrelevant. They're not that bothered about painting them. Like, it doesn't really matter what the theme is. It's just about how does the game play. For me, that's not me, I don't think. Except for Vanguard. Clyde saying, lots of yammer this evening. Lively, great to see. Yeah, it's nice to see a bit of chat, mate, isn't it? And thank you for joining the member program there as well. Much appreciated. Gary says, the belief that an unsolicited opinion is valuable is the heart of many modern problems. Also, if someone has obviously worked hard on a thing, don't crap on it. Yeah, I agree. Everybody can kind of like, sort of, everybody can love what they love. Like, the world would be a much nicer place if we all just let the people love the things that they love, and we didn't tell them it was bad. Jamie Newton, good evening. Says, been a while since I made a Monday night. Well, nice to see you in, my friend. Yeah, RG says, I'm fed up with games that require a huge amount of bookkeeping and a constant need to reference tomes and tomes of edge cases. Yeah, that's not really my kind of gaming either. Like, I'd much rather we just like rolled a 4+ or something like that, just to get round them, rather than really having to fine tune rules to find out whether it's right or not. Vijay saying, the more often than not they give a crap rules teach, as they have zero social skills, aren't interested in teaching you, interested in winning. Yeah, I know the kind you mean now, mate. Colin said, I did create a vampire model to represent Yvette from Drowned Secrets in my Undead. Yeah, you can, but then that's reliant upon you. That's not because the game reflects the law. Waffles Enjoyer, Ameritrash. First of all, how dare you? So, I mean, that is a term. That's what those games are called. Mark says, we need Mantic to release an Orion model for the Basilian army. Then, good idea. Well, that would help. Named characters. I'm all for named characters. I know some people are not. Malcolm Brown says, hello from Homer, Alaska. Hello from Alaska. Well done, mate. Thank you. Why am I saying well done? Thank you very much. Well done from being from Alaska. Nice to have you in the chat. Appreciate it. Waffles Enjoyer says, many Mantic resin minis seem pretty good, but a lot of their plastics haven't been able to catch my interest. Some of them have issues with how the tooling was made, make some parts look strange. Yeah, I would agree, mate. There's, like, for example, if in the Firefight 2-player starter set, the Orcs, which are, or the Marauders, I should say, which are a relatively new model, like, there's a lot of detail that's lost down the sides of the models. Like, it's really difficult. I remember painting them and thinking, I can't really tell where the boot ends, where the leg starts, and where the waist is. It was kind of like, I had to just basically paint a line in and Cover it in wash. Jed says, I find 40k an awesome setting. I listen to a lot of lore stuff on here, but then I think about painting dozens of boring Space Marine minis and my brain turns around in my head. Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. I know what you mean. It's, I think you need to be really committed. The same people who paint big Space Marine armies are the same people who are very much into painting, or the same mentality as people who paint big World War II armies or build like Napoleonic armies kind of thing. I think if you like painting the same colour over and over again, you'd be alright. Malcolm Brown says, I really enjoyed painting the GCPS. I just find that there's not enough variety between the models, to be honest. Like they're pretty much like, even the, I forget what they're called now, but like the main troops and the special troops are essentially a head swap. Basically, that's it. Paul says, Mason Labs aren't new. They're new to Firefight, but have been in Dead Zone for years. They were brought out literally to allow people to play a Dead Zone with Star Saga miniatures. Yeah, I'm not saying they're new, mate. What I mean is that they're a new faction to Firefight, but there's no new models. What they've essentially said is, here's a load of GCPS models, here's a load of Plague models. Let's just put them together and call them the Amazing Labs, really. Like, if they were going to release a new, like, Amazing Labs army, it would have been nice to have some Amazing Labs specific models, that's all. I just mean that if you're, like, the Amazing Labs model box will not suddenly change your mind. If you're somebody that wasn't really interested in playing Firefight, seeing that new faction come along wouldn't change your mind, for example, because all those models are already existing elsewhere. Reading 15 minutes later does make you sound like a nutter. Yeah, you're right. Colin says, PVC is fine. You need to treat it as PVC. Sharp knife for a cleanup. Hot water to put it in place, and super glue. I like them, to be honest. Like resin mixed with hard plastic. I hate PVC, mate. I hate building metal models, and I would build metal models all day rather than build them PVC ones. They are just absolutely garbage. They want to get in the bin. Mark saying, yeah, he had built in PVC minis. Yeah. Super Punker Man says, yeah, the only reason Warhammer Old World had a finite time was they blew up the planet. But they blew up the planet because the story wasn't going anywhere. There was nowhere to go with it. That was the problem. Yeah, Clyde saying PVC minis should be outlawed. I agree. The only place for PVC minis is like the little kind of army soldiers in a plastic tub for kids for £1. That's the only place we should see PVC minis. Jez is saying these Mantic Goblins are canny nice, but the whole army of them isn't going to happen. I'm using stuff from other companies in with them. Yeah, to be honest, the Mantic Goblins are some of the nicer range, to be fair. Roderick says he played his first Battletech an hour ago. I'm too old. 50's kind of crunchy, but I may get in the rotation. Yeah, it's not my kind of thing, mate. Clyde saying, I'm having a chat there, backwards and forwards. Matt says Alpha Strike plays a lot quicker, cut out the damage sheets and reducing the 90-minute game to 30. And yeah, and Clyde saying crunchy is a primary trait of Classic. Yeah, you do seem to get a lot of crunchy games which were older ones, don't you? Yeah, Peter saying, let's face it, 1,000 people, 1,000 different tastes. Or maybe 500 different tastes at least, mate, yeah. Let's have a little catch up a little bit here. What was that? Let's have a little look here. Where are we up to? Let me just... I'll catch up here. Waffles Enjoyer says, Dead Zone or Firefight? Dead Zone or Firefight? I actually like the Dead Zone rules, but then I have the same issue with both games when it comes to the minis. Basically, like none of them are really inspiring for me. I guess in that respect, Dead Zone you need a lot less minis, so you wouldn't have to paint quite so many. So yeah, but they're both really good rule sets. They're both really good games. I just find that Dead Zone doesn't necessarily inspire me because the games always look the same, because everybody uses the same terrain, because you need 3-inch cube terrain. So every board I see looks pretty much the same for it. and I'm not massively inspired personally by the minis. That's my own kind of taste. I appreciate other people might feel differently about it though. Yeah, Mark says, when you have kids, your world changes. You're not wrong, mate. Jess says, people tie their identity to things, but then tend to feel a criticism of that thing is a criticism of them. I think it depends on that criticism as well, though. Like, if somebody, like, let's just say, I like Pepsi Max, right? If somebody said, oh, I'm not really keen on Pepsi Max, like I don't really like it, I wouldn't feel personally attacked. But if somebody said, God, anybody that drinks Pepsi Max wants their head stoven in, at least war there, wants their head stoven in with a shovel, like, then I may take that personally, kind of thing. And I think that's the levels we get to online with stuff now. It ceases to become a criticism of the thing, and it becomes a criticism of the people who like the thing. I think that's the problem. Yeah, caring about winning is when I know to step away from a game. You're not wrong, mate. Discourse is, brands foster a parasocial relationship with consumers, and we define ourselves because of what we consume. So people become touchy if you criticize the things they're interested in, because it's treated as a value judgment on them as people. Yeah, I guess that kind of goes back to what I was just saying. I think it depends upon the criticism. Like, I'm quite happy for somebody to say that they don't like the thing that I like, but it's how they put that across. Like, you know what I mean? Like it really does depend upon how it's attacked. Like I can say I don't like something, and that isn't an attack on the thing, and it's not an attack on the people that like the thing. But if you become very animated and vehement about it, and very anti the thing, shall we say, then that's different, I think. Roderick says, I like to see other people's army do their cool thing. I'm weird. I'm there for the crazy rolls. I think we're all there for the crazy rolls, mate. Yeah, and Discourse in, it's why I advocate for considering ourselves general hobbyists rather than identifying with a single brand. I remember that getting a bit out of hand, but I absolutely do agree with you. Like, at the end of the day, we're all just folks who like painting, playing with miniatures, rolling dice. The game is almost irrelevant. Like, everybody likes what they like. The game's irrelevant. Like, we don't separate kind of like scale modelers into, or you're an airplane scale modeler, and you're a train scale modeler, and you're a car scale modeler kind of thing. They're just folks who build scale models kind of thing, aren't they? Though still not sure if Wargamers is a great catch-all. Maybe mini gamers, but then I think that's a thing already. I think it depends. Like, how would we do it? Like miniature gamers, I always think of miniature gamers as people who play games with miniatures. So if you're into miniature gaming like that, but then that doesn't necessarily cover people who like to paint miniatures. I guess that's why we call it like the hobby as a catch-all. And I guess there are lots of different hobbies. But when I talk about the hobby, or the wargaming hobby, I'm trying to narrow it down to people who paint, people who play, people who absorb the lore, like around the miniature gaming or the war gaming sphere, if you like. It doesn't matter whether that's historical, it doesn't matter whether it's fantasy, it doesn't matter whether it's sci-fi, it doesn't matter whether it's modern day, or whether it's noir, whatever it is. That's how I would kind of try and describe it. But yeah, the only reason we try and put a label on it really is because, like, we're trying to tag YouTube videos, or we're trying to title YouTube videos. Roderick says, seeing a single stand unit hold off something powerful is grand. Yeah. Super Pumpkin Man says, that's why my Tyranid have 4 different paint schemes, but tie it together just so I don't paint the same thing over and over. I get that mind about not painting the same thing over and over. Discourse says, have you built any night models pre the Batman starter set? I had some Batman miniatures. Oh, I'm going back. Maybe 2nd edition rule book when they were when the resin ones were out then. Were they resin or were they metal? I forget now. But no, not in any real anger. I've not built any night model stuff. Jess says, winning is good, but I'm so shit, so I learned how to enjoy losing. There is that as well. The old resin they used was a nightmare, though the new Sirecast stuff is good. Yeah. I think anything over the old stuff what they used to use was a nightmare. I remember the whole Harry Potter debacle where everybody was getting like broken wands and arms snapped off and all that kind of stuff. Wasn't good times. Matt says, I've got too many flashbacks to building GW Metal Minis and always having their arms drop off. The 90s without the internet was the Wild West. I'll be honest, I've become almost allergic to Infinity miniatures because I really can't stand building metal models. Roderick, thank you very much for the super chat there. It says, big ups to you, Blackjack. I backed Hametsu. Thanks. Hametsu looks awesome, mate. I must admit, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the rules. I would like one of the awesome looking rule books, but the shipping to the UK just makes it like nigh on impossible, to be honest. Well, not impossible, just makes it very, very expensive. What were we just talking about there? I've lost my train of thought now. God, I can't even remember what we're talking about. Oh yeah, Metal Minis, that's what it was. Yeah. I want to love Infinity and I want to love the game. But I absolutely hate building metal models. And I hate building PVC models even more than I hate building metal models. Colin says, send me all your PVC. You'd have to fish it out of the bin, mate, honestly. Disco says, I was investing too much of my ego in winning or losing. I realised it was ruining games for me. I think some people can become too competitive. Like, I am quite competitive, and I want to win. But it's not like life or death. I guess when I played sports, I was different. I'll be completely honest. I was quite a competitive sports person. I think I'm just not. I think the difference with miniatures games is I'm not like committed enough to beat myself up about losing because actually I've lost because I haven't put the work in kind of thing. But when I played sports, like I did put the work in kind of thing. I did train and I did like try and do my best. So I think that's why I was a bit more of a sore loser when it comes to sport. What are we up to here? Colin saying now she's just like a dog elder. Jesse's got to find the fun in being crap. You're right. That's why I tend to pull back from a game if I find myself caring too much if I win or lose. I don't think I've ever. I wouldn't say that these days. Certainly, I wouldn't say I would never be able to crush somebody kind of thing. That's why I love co-op games, though. Yeah, I'm a big fan of co-op games. Discourse. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I wish there was more of them in the tabletop, like in miniature gaming as well, though, to be fair. Clyde says, I'm clearly weak for advertising as I'm really craving a cola now. Let me just, I was going to say I wish I still have some, but I couldn't see. I still have my glass. Super Pumpkin Man says, I will never not be salty above Warhammer Old World because I love my Tomb Kings and living in Texas, I like the desert themed stuff. Matt says, I like Pepsi Max. I want to live. Live! Looks like me and you are getting hunted down, mate, I think. Jez says, Pepsi drinker, eh? Worse than Mecha Stalin Hitler. I do like a Pepsi Max, I'll be honest. Like, hi, Carrie. How you doing? Nice to see you in the chat. Roderick says, bad thing is if you lose to me, you're bad at list building. I don't like list building, mate, I'll be honest. Any game where I have to put any serious thought into list building, I've instantly probably lost. Cleo says, I always associate Pepsi with zombies. 28 days later made a too big an impression on me. Animated and vehement, exactly. Let's have a look. Many criticise just the troll people. Yeah, let the skill model wars begin. If I don't like something, I now just say it's not my jam. It's light-hearted and a fun way to say something. Don't upset people as much as saying I don't like that. I think it sucks. It's funny you say that because I was like, obviously I went to see that Ant-Man and the Wasp film yesterday, and yeah, it wasn't my jam, shall we say? But I was conscious about how I communicate the fact that I didn't enjoy it, because I realised like it's only just come out. There's a lot of people that be still looking forward to seeing it, and they don't need me like telling them it's a pile of garbage kind of thing. So yeah, I must admit, I think I do these days at least reframe how I think about things, because I think when Curse City come out, I was massively disappointed with Curse City, and I do think that maybe I didn't explain the reasons why I didn't like it quite so well, and I think it maybe took the shine off it for some other people, and I do regret that, because it was never my intention for other people to lose interest in the game because I was quite vocally about how much I didn't like it or I didn't enjoy it. So yeah, I think these days I do kind of watch what I say about that kind of stuff. Disco says, yeah, regarding the wargaming hobby, I'm exactly the same. Talking, building, painting, collecting, playing, regardless of wargame genre. But even now, we're coming into a space of more and more co-op games. Yeah, I welcome co-op games. I wish we had more of them. Andrew says, the smaller the scale, the more epic. The bigger it is, the more work it is just to make the figures pretty. Yeah, I tell you, I'm not really into small scale stuff. Like, I'll be perfectly honest. Anything with a bit of a bigger scale these days gets my thumbs up. Discourse isn't solo games barely qualify as war games in a traditional sense. I think it's... I like the term miniature games because they are games that have miniatures, as opposed to a war game, which would suggest it's technically always about war. And I think people who play like the board game war games, which are kind of almost like Axis and Allies kind of things, people who play that kind of game call them war games and don't even consider miniatures games a war game kind of thing. So I think I do like the term miniature, like a miniatures game, because I feel like it describes what it is. Waffles is saying the hobby is manifold. It has many different parts and people enjoy parts more than others. Yeah, I think the problem with the overarching term, the hobby, is like everything's a hobby. Like fishing is a hobby, photography is a hobby, like going for walks can be a hobby. So when you call it the hobby, it almost has connotations of there are many hobbies, but this is the hobby kind of thing, which is a bit what's the word I'm looking for? Little bit, well, elitist. That's the word I was trying to remember. Yeah, Discourse is my problem with wargaming is that it assumes the gaming bit. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it does assume the gaming bit. You could say the miniatures hobby, I suppose, couldn't you? We're trying to get into semantics now. Hamatsu seems really interesting. A co-op medieval Japanese minis game. Yeah, I love the co-op aspect of it as well. Building metal with drops of CA kicker is a bit easier. Yeah, it is. What I've found though, when it comes to Infinity miniatures, is because they're quite small and fiddly, I've found you need like an extra pair of hands to kind of because what I don't want to do is spray one side with the kicker, put the super glue on the other side, and then put them together for them to instantly go off. So what I like to do is put the super glue on, put them together and position them, and then spray them with the activator to make it go off. The problem with that is you need 3 pairs of hands. You need 2 pairs to hold the model parts together, and then somebody else to spray the activator. Yeah, VG saying Pepsi Max, Coke Zero, just like chocolate or strawberry ice cream, both good, just depends on my mood. Yeah, I must admit I'm not particularly precious. Like I would drink Coke Zero or Pepsi Max. I'm not a huge fan of like the full fat stuff, just don't like the taste really, but yeah, it doesn't really bother me either way. There's that kind of old joke, I don't know whether it's the same in Australia, VJ, but certainly in the UK, it's like Pepsi, or is it, what we have is we have Coke, and then that we have is Pepsi okay? Because that's essentially what you have. Because people go to the bar and go, oh, like I'll have a pint of Coke, please, and the answer that comes back is Pepsi okay? Because that's what they sell in that particular place. So yeah, so we have Coke and is Pepsi okay? Malcolm saying developing a robust head cannon for my forces is a great part of the fun of wargaming, especially skirmish games. Yeah. Would drink Pepsi if I could win a Harrier. I need to see that show on Netflix. I quite like the look of it, to be fair. Colin saying you turned this Coke into a Pepsi. It's funny because this is actually a Coca-Cola glass, if that focuses, but it has got Pepsi in it, to be fair. Jez says a lot of folks were vocal about Curse City, don't worry. I think it was more within like my community type thing. Like I think I was really excited for Curse City. I was really hyped for it. And it was almost like I had a high ceiling to come down from, which really disappointed me. And I think I played the game before a lot of other folks. And that's not because I got it early. I was really looking forward to playing it because I loved Silver Tower. So I was looking forward to playing it. So I didn't bother painting the minis. I actually played the game solo with the minis basically just built up. And I think most other people were like sort of still building their stuff and painting minis and stuff at the time. And then obviously there was some people who never managed to get a copy as well, so they were a little bit salty about it. And then I basically kind of like came in and like shit all over it basically. Andrew says, well, Andy, I'm seeing Ant-Man 3 this afternoon. Let's just say the negative talk has lowered my expectations, so I may enjoy it. My official review of Ant-Man, without any spoilers, is it wasn't a bad film. It was just my least favourite Marvel film, shall we say. There you go. Let's have a little look here. Minis games can be about almost anything. I like to see minis game about heists. Oh, that would be interesting. Mark says, no list building games. Well, we'll see you at the Kings of War Clash of Kings UK. I very much doubt it, mate. Honestly, like, list building just does not, like, fill me full of excitement. Like, especially in a game where I need to paint a lot of models. Because I'd rather somebody gave me a list. I'd rather, like, when it comes to games like that, I'd rather somebody said, there's a list of models that you need to buy. Just do that. I find list building quite tedious. I don't have the brain to kind of look across all the different models and go, oh, that'll work really well, or like that'll do that, or that'll do that. So yeah, I'd rather somebody just gave me a list and told me what to get. Miniatures hobby was stolen by Dollhouse people, sadly. Is that true? Sam saying, just completely painted from start to finish. Wendell Lee from Wow West Exodus. While listening to this, and I'm really happy with the results. So this channel improves my painting. There you go, mate. I'm gonna put that on the box now. Improves your painting 100%. There you go. Invisible says, on the subject of awkward metal minis, I think the old Orc Dreadnought from the 90s needed 3 people to assemble it. Oh, I wasn't really into the gaming and miniature stuff back then, so I don't know. Super Pumpkin Man says, yeah, the fact Infinity models are so small, too small to pin sometimes, and made of metal makes me angry. Just think about them. Yeah, you're right. Family of Gamers, hello mate, how are you doing? He says, will you be at Adepticon this year? We missed out a few years ago. I won't be at Adepticon this year, mate. I was going to come. I even booked a hotel, and I was going to book my flight, but unfortunately, I can't really justify the outlay. It's going to cost me in the region of about £1,000, and I can't justify the trip, if I'm perfectly honest. So no, I'm not going to make an appearance this year. Dare I start Annabelle Hamilton? If it makes you feel any better, Sam, on making that decision, I'm going to be ending the stream pretty soon. So if you're relying upon me to help your painting, I maybe wouldn't start it. VJ saying, being an octopus would certainly be helpful when building some minis. You're not wrong, mate, yeah. Lemo Cruisy says, should be fixed list options for minis like Warhammer, Underworlds, Rivals decks. I like Moonstone, perfect example. No list building, no points. Warcry, I quite like, because generally when you buy a faction box, there's a faction inside. You can list build if you wanted to and fine tune it, but essentially you don't have to. Marvel Crisis Protocol, kind of like, you know, very limited list building in terms of points cost. Cleo, thank you very much for the super chat. Time for me to go and feed the local humans. Thanks for the stream. You are very welcome, and thank you for coming in tonight. And what was the other game we were talking about? God tier. No list building. Just choose 3 champions, you're done. That was it. There we go. Antonio saying, hello from Tahiti. A quick coffee break at work. Well, on that wonderful greeting from Tahiti, I think I'm going to have to call it a night now. I've got to get up early, and we're driving to Manchester tomorrow. As I say, I'm taking the little one out for a couple of days. So thank you, every single one of you, for joining the chat tonight. I've really enjoyed spending some time with you. It got a bit lively later on, which is always good. I do appreciate your support and all your super chats and your subscriptions and all that kind of stuff. If you haven't subscribed to the channel for whatever reason, please do subscribe. Always helps. And I will, as I said before, we have a few videos coming out this week. We've got a couple of interviews coming this week with Battle Systems about their new fantasy dungeon crawler, and also with Parabellum about Conquest as well. So yeah, keep watching the videos this week. If you can watch them, give them the thumbs up, give them a little comment as well. Always helps to push them out to the world. So yeah, thank you very much, and I'll see you next week when we'll be going through everybody's February submissions for the painting challenge. So take care, folks.